Hey everyone, welcome to the Vinh and Ali podcast.
Show.
How crazy is it that actually it's the Vinh and Ali show. I've only been doing this for the last 3 years.
We can rename it.
Yeah, we can. Let's just rename the whole thing. Let's call it the Craig and Dan show.
Yeah, call it whatever you feel.
Yeah,
like
whatever you want.
That's fine.
But hey, welcome to this episode. This is a beautiful time of the year. We're wrapping up 2023 and moving into 2024.
Wow.
How crazy is that?
How was 2023?
It's been one hell of a year. It's one of the years of my life where when I think back, I think I've peaked. I think every year after this is just going to be really, really crappy.
I think you peaked too.
Yeah, I think I have.
And as your friend, I want to be really supportive.
Yeah, be really
I'll
realistic.
sell you on the future and that it's
Yeah.
going to be better in this, but yeah.
Nah, that's it.
Like
It's
you
ended.
peaked when The Rock followed you. You peaked when
Joe?
found out you're having a kid.
Yeah.
You peaked, on multiple levels this year. So,
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's you're not.
You
beating
definitely
it.
haven't peaked.
No, I've
Yeah,
got upside.
yeah.
I've got upside this year. Like, if anything, I don't know.
If anything, the best years are still ahead of you.
Just,
We
best
haven't
years
seen
are
your
ahead.
best years
I'm
yet.
so
haven't seen them.
energized and optimistic about the future. Like, so much growth and potential left, but you've just maxed out. And
No, but look, it's not about us right now.
Yeah.
I want to do a quick little tradition.
yeah, what's a tradition?
This is something that Asians do for their loved ones during Chinese New Year. So this is the kind of Western New Year. So I'd still like to bring a little Asian tradition into the Western New Year, and I'd like to wish all of our listeners something. And you've got to think about something you want to wish
Yeah, great.
all our listeners too.
I'm glad you've thought about
Yeah.
this and now you're just
Yeah.
putting this on me.
I
live.
planned it way before. I've got it in my notes here.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
I didn't want to tell you about it.
Yeah, I love this.
So
Yeah.
what I
I'm
want to
sweating a
wish
little bit.
I can't wait to see what Ali wishes you all. But what I want to wish you is I wish for every single one of our listeners that happiness, wealth, and joy floods into their lives like a waterfall.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
It sounds way better in Vietnamese.
Say it in Vietnamese.
No, I don't want to.
Why? Do it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, your turn. Go.
Do it
What's
properly.
your wish for our audience?
So I can buy myself a little bit more time.
What's yours?
My wish for our audience is, so you know how I could do that slowly because I'm just still buying a little bit more time.
Yeah, I know you are.
And you stole all the great adjectives that most people would wish
Wealth
to other
and
people
happiness.
as well, which is
What
great
else is
too.
there?
Yeah, I know. You're like, I wish everyone joy and happiness and love and kindness. It's like you've left me with pretty much only the negative stuff, I guess. It's like you get a bit dark, but yeah, I wish everyone just peace. I think internal peace, and maybe the word that's coming to mind is good energy, good vibes as they head into the next year. And then from there, like the external and everything else can probably look after itself. But that's sort of
It's
my
very
wish for
Eckhart Tolle of you.
a little bit Eckhart.
Yeah, that's beautiful,
Yeah,
man.
just-
You found a really nice place in life where you're so zen. You're so zen to the point where this morning you nearly missed your flight.
Yeah, I was just sitting there
You know, you were
and,
sitting there
yeah.
meditating in the
It
airport.
wasn't zen when I had to sprint to the gate, but we made it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it's again just wrapping up a year and moving into the new year. We just wanted to say a big thank you to all of our listeners. You know, we can't believe we have listeners, plural. You know, it's kind of crazy that there are people out there listening to this, and thank you.
It's more than just Dan now.
Yeah, it's more than just Dan.
Yeah,
More than
it's
Craig
great.
doesn't listen to it,
No.
but it's more than just all the people. Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, people reaching out on social media and everything. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's
But
awesome.
look, on this particular podcast, as we round out the year and move into the next, we're doing Arnold's book. Arnold's new book, Be Useful.
Be useful.
This is I've really loved this book because it's so refreshing in that it's not overly complex. I loved that he kept things really high level, and I love that he didn't get into the weeds. I love that he stayed high level, stayed above the clouds, because that leaves you room to be able to fill in the blanks for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any other thoughts about the book before we kick into it?
Just when I was reading it, my admiration for Arnold just probably went up a little bit more. And it was a really nice way, just as the year's wrapping up and heading into the new year, reading a book like this, because he's just infused with so much of that energy and that optimism. And when I look at his story now, and I've read a couple of his other books as well, it really is one of the ultimate underdog stories, realistically, where he went and just broke barriers and boundaries coming from like Austria in areas that didn't even really exist at the time.
You had to fetch water every morning. No electricity.
And he mentions it in the book. He's like, my friends call me Forrest Gump. And he's got a very similar sort of story arc to that, where when in a bodybuilding, when that wasn't really a thing and took it to where it ended up getting to. He was like one of the first real true action heroes and stars, and he was doing that when couldn't even really speak English at the time, and he had the strong accent, and everyone's like, you can only be the villain, and he became a hero. And then went into politics, did well there as well, running the 6th largest economy in the world for a period. It's like, well, it's pretty impressive when you do it multiple times.
Even one thing, I mean, I know we're going to talk about all of it, but it's that he became an action hero, and then at the peak of the action hero era, he became a comedy guy. And then that comedy movie that he did made more money than all of his movies combined. Like you said, he's a guy that just breaks the mold time and time and time again. I think the way I think about it is that he's able to reinvent himself in every chapter of his life, and he gives himself full permission to reinvent himself. Because who goes from action hero to comedy to then politician? It's crazy. It's just so crazy, man. It's so
and
crazy.
just how I think the beautiful thing is just the courage that he always had to back himself.
Yeah.
In light of people telling him, hey, you shouldn't do this move, or this isn't the way that people normally do it. It's pretty inspiring.
Well, let's dive into this book. This book is about the 7 key lessons in his life that he's shared to help you live a great life. And I know you really connect with this book, because from the moment I picked you up at the airport this morning to come to do the podcast, you were like, man, this book was so good, because I love how much he focuses on vision. And that's the first chapter. It's on vision. So why don't you kick us off with your favorite chapter and your favorite topic? You always talk about vision. Even before we read this book, that's something you've always spoken to me about. Just get really clear on your vision. And I used to look at this as being the fluffiest shit in the world.
And to be honest, when I was reading this, it nearly reminded me of that again.
What, the fluffiness of it?
No, like just going back to vision.
Oh, why?
I felt like over the last couple of years, because you're right, probably 4 or 5 years ago, vision was so important in my mind. Yeah. And then probably the last few years, it's been more around execution and aligning with that vision, and then sort of enjoying the journey while pursuing that vision. I nearly lost sight of the top level a little bit sometimes, because in my mind it was like, well, that's kind of fixed. So it took me back to that idea of like dreaming a little bit more. And he talks about it like, you got to go see, you've got to go look again. And it was one of the things as I was reading the book and I was reading that chapter, I actually just closed my eyes for like 5 minutes.
Oh,
you
did
sort
that?
of like, picturing things. And I put the book down. I think I ended up falling asleep after that. But it was so nice just going back into that and being like, because it's nearly, to me, it's a muscle to actually go and see things and to develop a vision and to tap into yourself like that. It is quite hard, and that's why it does fall into that airy-fairy realm when you're trying to teach it, or you're talking about it. People are like, oh, here's vision and purpose again. It doesn't really make sense, but it's because it is quite difficult.
Well, it's not pragmatic.
It's not pragmatic.
Yeah, it's not pragmatic.
And it requires you to go into, like, you have to go pretty deeply inside yourself and collect clues from so many different areas. And then you've also got to nearly distill and process everything else that's happening in the external environment too. But I love the way that he's talked about it. He's like, the earliest vision that he had was very, very broad, right? And people think that they have to be so specific with their vision when they're thinking about it. Like, I'm going to change the world in this way, and I'm going to do it this day, and it's going to happen on this date, and it's going to happen here and all that. But I loved what he said here is like, the earliest vision that I had for my life was very broad. It was off America. That's as complex as it was. He was in like Austria, and he's like, I have a vision that I'm going to be in America. He didn't know what was going to happen over there or how it was going to play out, but he could just see that. And I'm not sure if you can relate to this as well, but for me, that was always pretty similar too. Like, I would start off with just an idea or a concept, and it really would be a vision that would just come into my mind. And then from there, you'd start coloring it in when you got a little bit closer. Like, I remember one of my early ones was, it was similar in a way. I just wanted to travel for work. Like, that was one of the early ones when I was in probably my early 20s. It was, how can I just explore the world and then do that while I'm working as well?
It was just travel.
It was travel. It was like, literally the vision was, I remember in like my 20s, it was get on a plane, right? Like, the vision was like the smell off, the walkway as you're walking in to the plane and then sitting down in the seat and doing that multiple times. And then from there, it's like you then figure it out. But
well, having that vision is just having a direction. So at least he was able to look in a direction, and the direction he was looking towards was America. And that's all that he could see. And I love that, because that takes the pressure off creating a vision. I think one of the main reasons why I didn't create a vision, because I thought that a vision had to be like something that Toyota had, where it was super clear and defined. And I thought, how do you start that clear? There's no way to. So I think in learning this, it relieved a lot of anxiety, because you can kind of go, okay, well, because I've kind of gotten to a point now in my career in life where I'm thinking, I actually don't know where to next. And it's really comforting knowing that it doesn't have to be fully defined. It can just be a word. It can just be a direction. And you color it in as you go.
And it changes. Like, that was the other thing as well. I always thought with the vision, I think people put so much pressure on it, because they're like, if I make this vision, it's got to be my vision for 50 years or 30 years. Whereas the reality is, I remember when I was really focusing on vision and, say, purpose, it was evolving on like a monthly basis or 6 monthly basis, where something else would get added in as I learnt more about myself, or I opened a few more doors and then embarked on those. So yeah, it's a cool concept, and it was a really nice reminder. And I think this book in particular digs into vision and purpose, probably more so than most other books that I've read, to be honest.
He says a sentence that makes it super clear, and it was so clear where I went wrong in so many periods of my life that you know, when wisdom, it's so simple, it's upsetting. Yeah. This is what he said, right? He goes, have a clear vision. What this means is to have a clear picture of what you want in your life, and then have a plan on how to get there. That's like the simplest sentence ever. That's right. And when but as I read it now as someone who's just turned 37, I kind of go, damn it, that's as simple as it has to be. Yeah. Have a vision and a clear picture of what you want in your life, and then just have a plan on how to get the stuff you want. Yep. That's all that there is. And it sounds simple, but it's difficult. And then it just made me think about, I'm doing a bunch of renovations in my house right now. Is it possible to accidentally renovate your house? Like it's just impossible to accidentally do anything. You can't accidentally create a chair. You can't accidentally create a laptop. Yeah. All of these things started with a vision. Yeah. And then they created a really detailed plan and strategy on how to achieve those things, and then you do it. One of the reasons why when I walk through my kitchen now, I'm like, oh, wow, this is an amazing kitchen. It's because Pei Wen sat down with someone, they created a full plan, but they started with the vision of what they wanted the kitchen to be, because it looks completely different to what it was before. But that means that if Pei Wen, my wife, she had a vision in her head, sat down with someone, created a plan. Now, all these different people came into the plan, the builders, the tilers, everyone, and then now they built it to what it is. It's unbelievable. But that's the same thing with life. Whereas I think often with life, we have a vision kind of what we want, but we don't create the plan part. We kind of just go, yeah, I got an idea of what I want. And then you now try to do one of the most complex renovations in your own life without help, without a blueprint, without a plan, without measurements, nothing. And then when it doesn't come together, you kind of blame your capability. You go, oh, I suck. Yeah. I can't do this. I can't do that. Well, I think it's just you didn't have a clear enough blueprint. You didn't have a plan that was detailed enough. That's all.
As you were saying that, the thought that came to mind, it's like, it's pretty incredible as human beings that we have this capability for vision.
Yeah.
Even when you were talking about the kitchen and renovating the house, like, where does that even come from? And then how special is it that, like, this thought or whatever that enters into someone's mind, and then we watch them and we witness it become a reality. To me, that's nearly like one of life's greatest magic tricks. You see these things, and it's really, so far, only humans that can do this, where they tap into something, whether it's the source or whatever it is, some inspired idea happens. Yeah. And then, you're right, it gets formulated with a plan and with some actions and decisions and resources and all that. But it just starts from that little seed off a vision, realistically, and then it can turn into anything realistically.
That is amazing, hey?
And it is quite awe-inspiring. Like, I think as human beings, like, when we see that happening and we see people actually performing some form of a vision, we do all celebrate it, whether it's on a small scale or a big scale, right? Like, whether it is like that, just seeing a house get built, or a hut getting built. Yeah. But it's like, that didn't exist there before.
What still freaks me out is that we started as cavemen, and somehow from using sticks and stone, some of our team members didn't make it out of that era. They stopped halfway through evolution. No, but like it blows my mind that people like Craig
Yeah.
and his family. You know? Sorry, Craig, I didn't mean to bring your family into it. It's just you.
And all his friends.
Yeah,
All his friends. Like pretty much everyone that he knows other than us. Yeah.
No, but like we went from cavemen, from people that just barely knew how to make fire, to that's the same breed of humans that created this, like a laptop, right? We evolved from that.
Yeah.
Isn't that insane? So at some point, someone again, like before, it's so hard to comprehend because it's like before computers existed, there was someone that had a vision to create a computer.
Yeah.
And now we have a computer that plugs into the World Wide Web and somehow it connects us to thousands of people from all around the world. Now we've got video cameras filming a podcast. Yeah. It just hit me in that moment. It's like, man, that is so crazy.
Well, the reality that we're living now is the culmination of a lot of vision.
Yeah.
And a lot of like execution. And like, even if you think back, you think
so
about the
crazy.
pyramids, right?
Yeah.
I was speaking about that this morning. Like somebody had that vision, however many
We still don't know how they did that.
And like, so there was thinking and vision and all these things happening throughout history. And it just keeps evolving.
Man, human beings are freaking amazing. I mean, I know all of this happened, but it's only coming to me now that how brilliant it is and how it all starts with a thought.
Yeah.
And that thought is what they would call a vision. Isn't that? And then where the hell do these thoughts come from? Tell me, Ali.
Probably Craig. Like realistically, it just goes full circle then.
For those of you who don't know, Craig is one of our editors and videographers on the team that we all don't like.
Yeah,
none of us actually like him. Do you actually like him?
I don't really like him.
Wow.
Yeah.
No one else does.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
All right, moving on. I think we're just teasing him and he's sitting there. It's collateral damage. Oh, it's hilarious.
This is workplace
why are we
bullying.
so mean?
That's all right. Soup
Well,
in.
Well, I
really payout.
I really feel like if we're going to make it relevant for our listeners and bring it back down a notch as well, because to be able to have a vision to create a laptop and create the next invention that's going to take humanity to the next level, I think that's really difficult.
Yep.
I think having a vision for your life, again, it doesn't have to be that grand. It doesn't have to be that complex. It doesn't have to be that crazy. I think let's go back to the start, like you said. What's the vision you want to have for your life in 2024? And you don't have to see it clearly.
Yeah.
But just start with a word. It's kind of cool that it could be that. I mean, I love that for Arnie. His was America.
America, yeah.
And that's all that it has to be. So I love starting with that. So I ask you, I know this is kind of crazy because we haven't done our recalibrate process.
Yeah.
So every year, Ali and I, we go away with the people we care about and love. And we kind of spend a whole week mapping out how we want our lives to be. And a part of that process, there's a vision part of that process. And do you have a word yet for 2020? You have a word already for 2024?
Yeah, I was thinking about it a little bit.
Oh, damn.
No,
that's cool.
Well, I just want to go through the process as well that we kind of use, right?
Yeah,
we do recalibrate and we go through our process.
And hey, just a quick plug for us. We've finally created a version of Recalibrate that we're sharing with the world. Ali and I have been working on this for the last 6-7 years now. And basically, it's our operating system. And it's our operating system on how we live, how we're able to achieve the things we've achieved in our lives. And we're kind of sharing this operating system now with the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's awesome
really exciting.
process and it's going to be exciting as this goes out there. So anyway, that was a nice little sort of mid-post ad, podcast ad. I love that. That was brilliant.
Mid-roll.
Yeah, mid-roll, B-roll.
It's not called B-roll.
No, it's not B-roll. I'm going into areas that I know nothing about. Yeah, that was weird. Mine. So if I think back, mine's been pretty solid the last few years as an overarching one. And we probably share a very similar one where it's, I think it's around like, well, if I look at it in a sentence form, it's doing things that we love with people that we love.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's kind of,
that's been a common theme.
That's been a pretty common theme that we've adopted for a number of years. And then when I went into last year, I just picked a couple of words. So my words were dreams, sharpen, and goats. Right. So go like, little cow.
That's not a goat.
No, that's not a goat.
That's a Scottish Highland cow.
Yeah, I know. I've got it for you.
Thank you, Ali. Yeah.
But when I look at that, it was themes, right? So I wanted to sharpen sort of my mind, my body, spirit, skills that I'd maybe neglected a little bit over the last year. dreams. I wanted to pursue dreams of my own, but then also have an impact on helping others in pursuing their dreams, right? It's things like Recalibrate and all of those things that we're working on. And then Goats was just being in the orbit of people that are just masters of their craft, like yourself, you know, athletes, people in business, spirituality, whatever it was, you know, experiencing some of the, you know, like amazing art forms and restaurants and all these things where I felt like art and magic's happening.
And you've done so much of that this year.
We've been pretty aligned, right, on that point. And when I go into the next year, I think now it's nearly a little bit like I'll go back to the start of it. It's around energy, energy and more internal. So how do I actually master myself further so that I can align more with my vision and my purpose?
Would peace be one of those words too?
Yeah, peace, like just energy, impact, maybe, like, you know, just having a nourished body, mind and spirit so that as I'm going on that journey towards my vision, the quality of that process is as amazing as it can be. Right? Because I think that's the other thing as well. Sometimes when you focus too much on external visions or goals and then the outcomes, you can sometimes get there and achieve them, but the fulfillment just doesn't exist because the quality of that process wasn't right there. And I think that's what I really learnt from the Goats part of my vision, which is Goats is greatest of all time, right? Like masters of their craft is, I think, to have sustained levels of excellence for a very long period of time. You see people that go about it in a very nourished and, I don't know, I keep going back to that word, energy. Like there's a pure form of energy there.
Yeah.
For very long-term success, I think.
That wasn't one word.
No.
Yeah, that was a lot of words.
That was a lot of words.
Yeah, you said you started off with it was going to be one word, and then you just went on this.
What you said, and
you
went
wanted
on
this
a ramble. Yeah.
You wanted this enlightened
Yeah.
spiel.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, that was nice. That was nice. But I mean, that's someone who has quite a clear vision on what they want for 2024.
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't have that.
Yeah.
I think I've got 3 words. And it's actually 3 words.
Okay. Let's see if it's 3.
Small, giant, simplicity.
Good.
Those are the 3.
Yeah, nice.
I don't know exactly how.
So now you're going to explain that with more words.
No. That's it. Those are the 3 words. Those are 3 words.
Explain it.
Well, it's those are the 3 words because I don't exactly know what else there is. I don't know how, I haven't got all the other colors yet. Yeah. And I'll explain it. Sure. Small giant is just I acknowledge now that moving forward, it's not about getting bigger and more complex. Because with more people, if you build the team, it becomes more complex. And maybe, again, I just want to acknowledge that could be a limiting mindset that I have, but that's what I believe to be true at the moment. The more people you have, the more complex it gets and the more structure. And I don't want that. So I want to be a small giant. And if you don't know what a small giant is, listen to our last podcast episode, which we covered the book Small Giants, which I think is fantastic. So I want to remain small, but I want to be mighty. And that's the giant component. That just because you're small doesn't mean you miss out on impact or anything. You still have impact. But we're going to choose to stay small, which means saying no a lot. And then simplicity is, I don't want to do too many things. I don't want to do too many things. You know, one of the reasons why, for those of you who aren't watching, there's like a little soft toy here that Ali bought me for my birthday. And it's a Highland Scottish cow. Is because my family and I were able to just, you know, we've got a block of land. And every time Ali buys me something, somehow I end up getting the actual thing in real life.
Really good at vision.
Yeah, it's the vision.
Good at your vision.
Yeah. Well, like one of the things he got me early on was he got me a Jeep, like a little Jeep toy,
Lego.
And then Lego Jeep toy, and then for those of you who are listeners of the podcast, you'll know this. And then I ended up like 6 months later getting like an actual Jeep, and like it's one of my favorite things in my life. We go camping with it and everything. And then now he gets me this Highland cow. And then I think in 6 months we're going to get a cow. And he said he'd pay for the cow too, so we're definitely going to do it.
Yeah, definitely wasn't going to pay for the Jeep, but maybe we can get a cow happening.
Yeah, it is actually quite an affordable cow, so yeah, you got to get one. Yeah, but thank you. But I love that.
It's like, oh.
But isn't that funny? Because this is also a symbol of vision, right? Yeah. And the reason why I bring it up during simplicity is the reason my family and I have that block of land is I want to seek a simpler life. You know, I want to be able to do what I do with work and have that intensity. But then I want a part of my life where, and this is going to sound really weird to some people, but I think I want to learn how to garden next year. I want to learn how to do gardening.
Yep.
And to enjoy
And
being
become a
out in
farmer.
nature. And how to become a farmer. Yeah, I want to wear overalls and everything.
Yeah.
And I just want to learn a simpler way of life
Yeah.
to balance out the complexity that I experience in the entrepreneurial path.
Mm.
I want to balance that out. I want simplicity. I love the complexity. I do enjoy it. I love problem solving and everything, but I want simplicity too. I want to find that balance. And I think in a way, in me doing that, it's also finding my own version of peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like even when I hear you say that,
Yeah.
it sounds like you're just looking, again, it's try to enjoy that journey a little
Yeah,
bit more. And
yeah.
Because even when you think about small giants, you potentially relate to that. Because it's like, I still want to be super impactful, but you don't want the weight or the overhead or unnecessary complexity that sits there. So you can have space and time to do gardening and spend time with your family and be on the farm.
Related to something that also Arnie says. He says, walk.
Yeah. Oh,
Just walk. Go for walks and
love
just
that,
allow yourself to think.
yeah.
And think and dream.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of said later in the book, but I think it kind of deserves to be in the first chapter as well, because, well, when do you think, like, this is the crazy thing. This is something I read from Earl Nightingale years ago. And Earl Nightingale, he says, something that most people don't do anymore, and he wrote this back in the early 1900s. He wrote, something that people don't do anymore is just think. Think about what your life could be. Think about where you want to go. And I thought, wow, that's such a beautiful thing. Now you're pointing to something. Did you have something as well written on that?
Yeah, just a quote. It's like, it is only ideas gained from walking that have any worth.
Wow. What about ideas while you're running?
That was a big call by Arnold.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
a
his
big call.
quote.
It's a big call. I've had some brilliant ideas in the shower too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I understand the sentiment.
The sentiment.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. But I love that.
Do you do much of that?
Walking?
Walk, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I did more, but yeah, 100%. Like playing golf is one of those forms where I think that's why I really love golf as a sport, is because it's one of the few things where you've got 4 hours walking, whereas I'm probably not going to go for a 4-hour walk.
Never.
Otherwise.
I don't think I've ever gone for a 4-hour walk.
Yeah, that's right. Like,
Yeah.
So, and it was one of my favorite things of the pandemic. I actually missed the pandemic because of it.
Wow.
Because we're only allowed to do like 4 or 5 things, and walking was one of them. And I'm like, what? We're only allowed to walk for 2 hours. I'm going to walk for 2.5. And it's
Wow.
like this reverse psychology.
Break the law.
Yeah, breaking the rules.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Another
I
one of
think,
Arnold things.
no, but walking's amazing. You know, it's, I think it is a really, it's a core component that's linked to our well-being and happiness.
Do you think walking by yourself is important?
Well, if you want to walk for, say, thinking and
Yeah, you
vision
should walk by yourself.
and stuff like that, then
Yeah.
probably maybe by yourself. But
Yeah.
in saying that, though, I know, like, remember reading about Steve Jobs and a few others. He'd have all these meetings while he was walking. He'd walk around the campus, and that's
Tim
how
Ferriss
they do
does
it.
that too.
Yeah, a lot of people believe in the walking meeting. I think also in terms of connection, it's a pretty good way. Like, go back to golf. When you're sitting there and you're walking with other people and you're outdoors in nature, just changes the whole energy and the vibe of that experience. Like the way that you can build connections and stuff. It does something to you, I think, on a subconscious level, whether you're walking by yourself or yeah, I think just nature in general as well. Right? Like, I don't think it's just the act of walking. Like, say, for example, if you're just walking on a treadmill, I don't think that's the same as walking.
No,
in
that's
a beautiful
that's
park.
walking for exercise.
Right.
That's cardiovascular kind of training, right?
So, yeah.
Well, I just want to wrap
Yep.
the first point together and say to everyone that I think one of the most powerful things you could probably do, and one of the most brilliant pieces of wisdom from this book, is go for a walk, think about what you want your vision to be for 2024, and just write down words that come up for you. And these words don't even have to connect with each other. Just write them down and then color them in, basically like we did in this little segment now, where I just said the words small giant and then simplicity. You said many, many words, and then you extrapolated on it, and then you colored them all in.
Yeah.
I think that's such a great thing to do this time of the year, because now you can have some kind of structure as you move into 2024, even if it's unclear.
Yeah.
And don't have the expectation that it's going to be clear. Know that clarity comes in time. But start with almost the outline of the picture, and then you can color it in after.
Yeah. And I think also, just as a bit of a step-by-step practical framework for this that you can maybe play around with, is spend 5 minutes, close your eyes, have maybe a notepad sitting there, see what comes to you. Then from there, you could then also set just one simple goal one of the things that he does speak about in this is to make that vision a little bit more pragmatic. And I think often people don't want to maybe look inside for their vision because they just don't have enough evidence that it's worth going to that point. Right? There's an element here, I think, around fear and self-confidence for a lot of people, where sometimes it can be scary to dream and to have a vision because there's a level of doubt that if I dream this thing, I'm just going to be disappointed because I'm not actually going to follow through or do anything with it. So setting a little goal or just a simple action to get some momentum, that's also going to help you color in that vision as you go down this journey as well. I think he speaks about that. It's like we get momentum and we get more confidence as we keep walking through more doors. Right. And they're achieving just little wins here, whether it's
evidence,
reading the first 10 pages of that book, you know, and if you really can't, if you're struggling with vision, yes, write down the first things that come to your mind, but then go look for inspirations, right? Start with the inspirations that are coming in.
Yeah.
Things that you see, whether it's on social media, whatever it is, and just make note of that. Don't judge it. And
it's
then
clues. Look for clues.
And then if you can attach some sort of action
Yeah.
or a small goal to that, that's maybe the first step.
Yeah.
To then head down that path.
Well, I like that. I like how pragmatic you just made that. And don't be afraid to have a vision that's greater than what you feel is possible for you right now.
That's right.
I think that's one of the most endearing things about Arnie is that he grew up in Austria, right, in a village where no one ever dreamed about more than raising cattle.
Yeah.
Right. And his dad's thoughts of him being a bodybuilder, his dad was saying stuff like, no, like be more useful to the people around you. You raising those cows or you raising the cattle, you know, you helping fix your neighbors' homes, that's more valuable. Whereas he was dreaming about being a bodybuilder on Venice Beach in Los Angeles. Yeah. So I think give yourself that little bit of permission this time of the year, you know, dream a little. Give yourself permission to write a vision that kind of scares you a little bit, because that's something that Arnold says too.
And you don't have to complete it in 6 months or 12 months. You can have a vision sitting there for 10 years, 20 years, and you can just slowly work and build up to it. Keep coloring it in. It's cool.
It's one of the things that make the hard times easier to get through is when your vision is strong enough to pull you through it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. If your vision is too small, sometimes what happens with that is then you just can't be bothered getting out of bed because it's like, hey, what's the point?
Yep.
What's the, you know?
It's a great way to, you know, if you get stuck in the weeds and life's getting a little bit reactive or overwhelming, if you have some statements or like some words like this that you can go back to, for me personally, I just go back to that. That's how I pull myself out and above the weeds. And then I could be like, okay, well, let's go back to the vision. How aligned am I with the vision right now? How can I simplify the vision a little bit and the actions? And then I can work there to sort of get out of the weeds. And you can get trapped in there a little bit.
Yeah.
We get trapped in little loops and a year flies by or 5 years fly by and it's like, well, how do I end up here? And I think that's because we're not going back to our vision. That's what we teach a lot in the recalibrate process is we've now got a framework here where you can constantly keep going back to it.
It's like not having a destination in mind and then you just end up going
floating
wherever you want and you don't follow the GPS and then you just end up lost and then you think, oh, no, I'm not capable. I don't know where to go. Well, at some point you did know where to go. You didn't go back to that. You didn't continually go back to that. Yeah. Which kind of ties in nicely with the second chapter, which was never think small. I love that. I mean, just like we said, don't think small. Give yourself permission to dream. I've said this so many times. It's one of my videos that went the most viral on social media was just talking about giving yourself permission to dream. I think one of the reasons it kind of went viral is that people really connected with that. I think it's again one of I love this quote by Will Smith where he said the quickest path to mediocrity, being realistic is the quickest path to mediocrity. I really like that. So I think, you know, this is the best time of the year again to really start to give yourself that permission and freedom to dream up some dreams that scare you a little bit.
Yeah. Ooh. When I was reading this chapter, I was just thinking about you. Because I think you're one of the few people that I know in life that you do. I don't know if you verbalize your big dreams that strongly, but you do execute very big dreams, right? And I was wondering like how your process, because you don't sit there. You're not one of those people. You're like, oh, one day I'm going to do this, this, and this. I've never heard, like over the last 10 years that I've known you, you've never been someone that's like, oh man, I've got this big grand idea and I'm going to do this and it's going to hit these numbers and it's going to happen like this and play out.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like I probably do more of that for you in a way. But you're just like, yeah, it wouldn't matter if you said that or not. I was just probably just going to go just keep chipping away at what I'm doing right now. And then you end up at some ridiculous destination.
Yeah.
But it's never surprising. It's like, well, how...
Well, it's really weird, right? Because we were talking about this in the car.
Yeah.
We were talking about this in the car on the drive down to the studio, and it was when I left America to come back home to Adelaide, I felt like that's it. I peaked in America. That was the best years of my life. I was on stage speaking to 10,000 people for the Fortune 500 companies. Now I've left all of that and I'm going back home to Adelaide, where everybody else in Australia thinks it's a piece of crap to live in Adelaide. And you were shocked that I had teeth. You know, it was like we always get teased for those of us in Adelaide. And I came back to my hometown, and I remember feeling really down because when I came back to my own hometown, there was a bridge that was being built before I left. And when I came back, it was still being built. And I kind of went, how are they still building this bridge? This is crazy. And things just haven't changed. Nothing has changed. Everything looks the same. No, I think the bridge is done now. Yeah, because during COVID, no cars. They had a lot of time. And I felt really down. And I remember saying to my friends, I said to Dan, I said to my close friends, I said to them, I want to dream again. Because for a couple of years there during COVID, I stopped dreaming. I stopped, man. I stopped thinking big. I stopped allowing myself to think big. And you're right. I often don't verbalize a lot of my dreams because I'm scared to. Because, you know, there is such thing as telling the wrong people about your dreams.
Yeah.
Because you could tell the world about it. And sure, I know there's scientific evidence behind publicly announcing something that holds you more accountable. But you also got to understand that sometimes voicing your dreams, people will tear it down, which is connected to the second point. Because he goes, you have to ignore the naysayers. But then the reason why I don't share it, Ali, is that when I don't share it, the naysayers don't exist.
That's right.
No one can talk my dream down when no one knows what it is.
I like it. I think there is an element. I know everyone says it's like when you have a dream, you got to shout it.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with you. I think the real big ones sometimes, you got to hold them sacred.
Well, I only tell my very internal circle, which you're obviously not a part of. That's why you
don't.
Which is why you don't know about.
Why do you always do these things? Yeah. We do a pod like for hours.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, you know, you just I always keep my enemies at an arm's length. You know, I keep them close.
You're being really mean to everyone. You know today.
What the hell's going on?
Like usually a really nice guy. This is quite a brutal. You're being pretty nice to Dan, I guess.
You bought me a cow and all.
Yeah, I know, but
I still mean to you. No, but I mean, I think that's why I don't share it with you.
Double downing on it.
I just like it because you thought I was ending, but I was still attacking.
Really good. Yeah,
you put your shield down, and I shanked you.
My shield was up.
I got you all the time.
No, but I was just already bleeding out.
The
shield wasn't really doing too
You already did. It wasn't necessary.
That's fine. Yeah.
But that's again why I think I don't share it.
Yeah.
Is because I don't have to deal with naysayers when the naysayers don't know about my dreams. Anything else? But that's really all that there is to it. I think I deal with naysayers enough already.
So, all right. So on the other side, when you're then thinking about how do you think big then? So when you are going for these big and you're on these big journeys and, you know, like, because even I think about your story as well, very similar to Arnold. Like, you've done transformations. You've gone from magician to speaker to, you know, sort of into the virtual and online world, and you have transformed multiple times. How do you actually go through that process for people that are listening out there and they're looking at maybe transforming or changing their path?
It's something we've already talked about on the pod. And step one would just be look at life in chapters. Just really acknowledge that life happens in chapters, and your whole life doesn't just have to be one chapter on repeat over and over and over again. Give yourself permission at a certain point to go, you know what? End of chapter 1. And then start chapter 2. And don't feel like chapter 2 has to link to chapter 1. It can be a completely different chapter. So I think, again, I now fully give myself that permission to, in this next chapter of life, I want to learn gardening. I want to learn about farming. I want to learn how to raise animals, right? Which is so far out of my comfort zone because I spend the majority of my time indoors. This is going to have to, require a lot of change in me. So first thing, life is a book. It has many chapters. Allow yourself to write many exciting chapters that are not closely linked. Second thing is actually schedule time to dream. Schedule time to do that. And I love doing it in the mornings. You know, I love the text you wrote to me this morning. You said one of the biggest changes for 2024 for me is I want to wake up earlier. You now have tapped into my world, bro. I get up around 5 most days of the year. And I love getting up early before the rest of my family, because I've got an apartment in the city right now. I'm looking out to the city. I go, no one's awake yet. I can see the whole of my city and all the lights are still off. And then that's when you dedicate a good 30 minutes just to writing out some dreams, some audacious stuff. I've got a section in my journal. I write my journal from front to back, but then I write dreams from back to front. So on the back to the front are just ridiculous things that I write. And that's just for me. I don't, I'm kidding. I don't share that with Dan. I don't share it with any of you guys. I don't even share it with Pei Wen. I just write down really audacious stuff there. And but here's a really pragmatic tip for you. So A, get up early and do that. B, while you're doing that, play some really beautiful instrumental music. That is the backing track of inspiring moments that happen in movies. Shortcut for you. Just look for Hans Zimmer's playlist. And then while you're finding that, basically it's playing the playlist to the pursuit of happiness, and then you're listening to this upbeat track, the sun's slightly rising, you've got the visual, you've got the auditory, and mentally now you're in a state where you feel as if you're living out a movie scene where you're writing out a dream. And just allow yourself to dance and play in your imagination. Right? And then from all of that, after you've done that, where you can, and if you're courageous enough and you've developed that muscle, turn some of that into actions. Turn some of it literally into actions. Well, what are you going to do to bring that dream into a reality? Small steps. I think I now fully understand the power of small steps. I used to always look at those who take these big leaps of courage and do all these things as being the most inspiring thing. I've now learned that that's not me. I take just thousands of little tiny steps. And because I take them in a way that's invisible, after a couple of years, people go, wow, look at what he's been able to do. Well, it's because of all those little tiny steps that I've taken.
I think that's definitely something I've watched you do over a very long period of time, is you don't cheat the game. You do put in the work. There's a lot of stuff there, even with the level of success that you've achieved, where I think a lot of other people that are playing a similar game to you, they maybe get, I don't know if they stick to the roots as much as what you do, where you really do learn every aspect of the game that you're playing, and you go well beyond what I think most people really would. Yeah. And it's not just at the high level, and it's not just throwing resources around and doing it the easy way. You actually dig in there, you get a full understanding of it. And I've seen you do that over, like when I was reading this book, like when Arnold's talking about all the reps and all that, you do the reps. And you've done the reps for a very long period of time. So I think that muscle is built, where now you're at the point where probably any area that you're really going to, you can get to that level of, mastery pretty quickly, I think.
No, I think learning farming and gardening will still take me a damn long time, but it's more. I think one thing I missed out on saying there is focus.
Yeah,
I don't have 50 different dreams, right? Yeah. I've got at most times 1 or 2, and then I keep dreaming about that one thing or second thing, and then I fill in all the details of the dream. It's like, I think it will freak you out how much I now know about like farming and how to fertilize.
It's expected.
Yeah, and how much I know about alpaca poo and why it's one of the best forms of poo in the world, because its poo can be directly used in gardens, whereas like cow poo has to be, has to go through a fertilization process, whereas you don't have to with alpaca poo. It's fantastic, dude. And the alpacas are great because they only poo in one spot of your garden. I told you that already, right? It's so cool. They don't poo everywhere like freaking goats and cows. They poo in one place. It's so cool. So then that means it's easier for you to harvest the useful fertilizer. Yeah, it's so good. But again, the thing is,
for all the
it's great for all the listeners who have no desire to do any of that kind of stuff.
Alpaca enthusiasts.
But
no, I love that bit.
But what I think is really important here as well is, if you dream 1,000 dreams, they will just remain dreams. But if you dream 1 or 2 different things per chapter, maybe even per 3 or 4 chapters, they're gonna happen. One of the greatest YouTubers, he reviews tech. I keep forgetting his whole name. Peter. So MK MKBHD. I'm so sorry for being so disrespectful, but I watch his stuff from time to time. And one of the interviews he did, they said, "How did you become so successful as a YouTuber who reviews tech?" And he says, "Because I just do one thing. I just review tech. For the last 10 years, it's just been me reviewing tech." And he has this philosophy where he believes if you just do one thing and you only do one thing, you cannot fail at that one thing. You are inevitably going to become successful at that one thing. Whereas I think it's so easy in today's world to be distracted, disorientated, start one thing, take it to level 2.6, quit, start another new thing, take it to level 3.4, quit, start another thing, take it to level 1.1, quit.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's definitely, just as you were saying that, I love that approach, because I think your approach is the one, if anyone does follow it to that level, it is just proven and it will work.
Yeah.
Right. But then it's one of those things where it's so simple in its beauty, but not many people actually pursue it like that.
It's compounding interest.
It is.
It's just it's the small steps.
And having a vision is something that can help you go on that journey. I think, where you can then commit to it.
Because
my way as well, when I think about how I've approached it, it's probably a little bit different. I go more like in the subconscious realm with visions and these things, and I wait for timing and opportunity to intersect. Yeah, a lot of the time. So I don't do as many of probably the reps, I'd say. Yeah. But then once something feels like it's more strategic. Like it's more intuitive as well. Yeah. If something feels right, then I'll jump on it. And to me, it's nearly like in my head, I want it to feel like, well, wow, that was unexpected. I didn't see that happen. And like, even when we're doing this pod, right? Like I was thinking about it earlier today. This is not my world. And
it's not my world either.
But I'm sitting here with you. It is a little bit more your world, though. Communication, being a thought leader, having a big audience, and all of that. And I'll sit there and I'm like, it's a pretty crazy reality. And I pinch myself a little bit that I get to sit here in this in this environment with you, and we chat about books. Like that to me is a little bit of a pinch me thing. It's about timing and opportunity. Like I haven't done the reps for this, or like it wasn't like part of a big vision that I was hunting and working towards. Definitely part of a vision, but like a really like nice to have vision. And then it happened. But I think it happened more with like timing and opportunity and us meeting and chatting about books, like all of these things. Like it nearly feels like, it wasn't like planned or deliberate, but now these beautiful things happen. Just it nearly feels like it's unfolded into it.
I think that's why sometimes when I look at you, I'm like, man, it's not fair. Right? You know what I mean? I'm like the way I think about it, if we're both archers, right? Yeah. It's like I've shot 1,000 arrows to be able to hit the bullseye. Yeah. And I look over at you, you've got one arrow. You haven't been shooting this whole time. You're just waiting for the wind to be right. You're waiting for the right time.
I'll miss 1,000 times.
but then you take a shot and then it hits the bullseye and then you leave. And I'm like, son of a... Like, it's just... Like, I see you do things with such ease. You know, I've seen you work hard too. Yeah. But I've also seen you move through this in such a... I think your genius is strategy. Do you know what I mean? It's like you are able to find you're able to find the most effective path with the least resistance. Whereas most people... When they find the path,
I don't know if he's insulting me here or
I'm not insulting you, but because it's a genius in that when most people follow the path of least resistance, that's a path towards mediocrity. Whereas you've been able to create an incredible life for you and your family, but you've somehow managed to find a way to achieve greatness in a way that's not like blood, sweat, and tears, and David Goggins. Yeah, you know, you've been able to achieve high performance as Eckhart Tolle. Do you know what I mean?
It's more on the other
side. Like,
it's quite.
Whereas I'm a little more Goggins. Like I do enjoy that. I do enjoy the relentlessness. I love intensity.
Yeah. Like, I've never seen you so happy. Like you're doing some masterclass the other day and
Yeah.
your internet went out and then you like navigated and you're
Yeah,
running around.
yeah,
So-
yeah,
Well, that's
yeah.
the happiest I've seen you like work-wise
Yeah.
in the last 6 months because
I enjoy that.
You're in the intense battle.
Yeah.
Whereas I would have just left that and like
Well,
put a
no,
recording on or
but
something and then come
you're
back.
so surprising because I like to, and this is just me indulging myself
Yeah.
in a beautiful metaphor for myself.
This is
But I like thinking of
it's the end
myself.
of the year,
Yeah, it's okay. You
We
say
can
whatever
do
you want.
it. Yeah.
I like to look at myself as a high performance vehicle.
Yeah.
Let's say a Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of myself as like a high performance vehicle. You take me on the track and go hard.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, and then while I'm on that track racing with other supercars, I see a Camry out there, and you're keeping up pace with us. And I'm like, how is this Camry out here? How is this Toyota family four-door
I
car?
thought maybe I'd get Tesla, like self-driving Tesla
No,
or
not
something.
Tesla. You're Camry.
No, I got a
Toyota
Camry.
Corolla now. You've just dropped one because you questioned it.
Camrys are reliable. They last
Yeah,
long.
but-
I
no, but the
wish I
thing
was
is-
a Camry.
But the thing that's shocking is out there is a Toyota Corolla.
I'm in the
Keeping
backseat of an
speed.
Uber. That's what mine is. It's like this is.
But you know what I mean, though? That's what
Yeah.
I mean is
Yeah.
that it's always incredible what you're able to do with the resources that you have.
Yeah.
And I find that to be super inspiring because out of all the high performers I know, you are the one that enjoys life the most on the way. Whereas the majority of the high performers I know sacrifice quality of life for that high performance. And I would say if I didn't meet you, I would have very easily become that person. That, again, the Goggins, right? Who's going to carry the boats, right? I would always be that. Just always, who's going to carry the boats? You're like, man, let other people do it, bro. You're like, I don't even have a boat. It's like, it's just so crazy
We'll
that,
stay on land.
you just go, well, you just
No.
stay on land.
Oh well, that's.
I think it's really cool. I think
think
you've really mastered high performance in a way that is wholesome.
Yep. And
And you've taught me that along the way.
straight back at you.
Yeah.
I think you've shown me what additional levels of mastery look like.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I think there's always that trade there, but yeah, I think I've definitely learned that, and probably doing a few more reps than what I would have done.
Yeah, yeah.
previously.
You're pretty riced up Toyota Corolla. It's pretty sick. You've got a damn good engine in
got
there.
neon
now.
lights and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. You're not a V4,
No. Still
You've
second
got a
hand,
V6 in there.
Well, that's-
It's scary.
so,
It's cool.
so inspiring.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, again, let's go back to the book and stop praising each other
Yeah.
because that's a little bit gross.
Yeah. I don't know if that was praise.
Yeah,
but then
I felt
called me
it was.
the riced up
Right,
Corolla.
Toyota Corolla. You got like neon lights underneath
Yeah,
your car,
yeah.
and it like pulsates
Yeah.
to the music
Yeah.
as you drive.
Pretty much just saying I'm a polished turd.
Yeah.
Realistically, I couldn't
Impressive
afford a
one, though.
real sports car. Like I
impressive.
just had to rice up my Corolla. This actually sounds like my first cars.
Well,
It's on
look,
brand. This is a line.
Chapter 2 is never think small. I think, I think if you have been thinking small, it's okay. I think a lot of the times in society we get groomed to do so because thinking small is what? Thinking small is being safe, is being secure. And, not to harp on like an old man. Every time I say this stuff, I feel like an old man because this is, I feel like this is what old men say.
Yep.
When you realize you only get to live this life once, do you really want a completely secure and safe life? I don't think so. I think it's like the analogy I have. Sorry to use so many car analogies, but it's like if I've got a car, if I know that at the end of this game I have to return the car and give the car back, I'm not going to give the car back in perfect condition. I'm not going to care if there's dents in it. I'm going to drive the hell out of it, and I'm going to give it a good go. It's like something I always say to my friends and my family. I say this all the time to them nowadays. They're sick of it. But it's, man, if we only get to do this once, let's taste all the damn flavors. Let's taste it all. So if you're listening to this and you have been playing a little safe, that's okay. Next year and as we move into 2024, give yourself that permission to do something that scares you a little bit. Yeah, and don't think small. Maybe it's to do with your health. Maybe it's to do with your finances. Maybe it's to do with your work or your family life or the holidays you want to go on. Don't think small with that.
Even as you're saying that, I think it's the ultimate form of growth. It's when we overcome something that does scare us a little bit.
Yeah.
Right, like it's all well and good, like going to the gym and reading a book and taking those smaller steps. Right, like most New Year's resolutions start like that. It's going to be some habit change or all that. Absolutely, take the small steps, but you really get energized when you do that thing that you've been putting off that's linked to fear or doubt or things that, courage. And I think when you can tick that box to yourself, that's when we feel like, oh, now what else can I do? right? Like you don't get that if you just do the safe things. Like, yeah, listening to a podcast is awesome and doing a few of these things. They're like the building blocks. But at some moment, there's going to be that thing where you just have to take a little bit of a leap in that space of uncertainty and just see how you go in that. Right? And that probably is the difference between those that do pursue visions and those that don't. You know, and I was just thinking more about when you were talking about that. That's one of the things that where I think we are both similar is that we have a higher tolerance for failure, I think, than maybe most do. Like we don't care like if something doesn't play out perfectly. We'll figure it out on the way. And I think there's a general level of optimism and a positive outlook on life where we get lemons and we'll try to turn them into lemonade as much as we can. And I think if you have that just as an internal mindset, whereas it's very easy, especially in the world that we live in right now, that when things happen to us, what's the first thing a lot of people do? Blame someone else. It's the government's fault. It's, I didn't do this. Somebody stitched me up. Like all of that. Like if you're in that mindset, it's going to be really hard. Like that nearly is the counterbalance to probably pursuing dreams and thinking big. Like people that think big and pursue dreams, and whether they're doing it the way you do it, the way I do it, they've got more of a forward momentum towards whatever that is. And when the hurdles come, it's like, haha, you just laugh at it. It's like, whatever. That's just part of the game. It's part of that journey. It's not going to be, it's not like I think Arnold speaks about in the book. Well, if you don't actually climb up Everest and you just get helicoptered up to the top, it doesn't have the same effect or experience. You know, it's not really like that fulfilling. And that's what we learned. We spoke about the journey earlier on. That's what the journey's about. It's what you learn about yourself, I think, as you embark on that journey. And how far do you actually want to push that while you do have this one life?
With what you said on failure, I don't think Arnold specifically spoke about this, but I think he embodies it. And it's what Jocko Willink talks about. I think Arnold is the kind of person that takes full ownership for his own success.
And failure.
Yeah.
It's full ownership.
He never blames anyone.
It's full ownership.
There was a story in the book where he talked about he went for heart surgery. And when he went for heart surgery, the surgeons kind of stuffed up and almost killed him. It was meant to be a small keyhole surgery. And then when he opened his eyes, they said, "Hey, Arnold, we stuffed up. We're going to have to open up your whole heart and chest now to do really dangerous surgery." And then after they did the surgery, he was lucky. He survived. Most people don't survive this. And then he goes, people always asked him, you know, are you going to sue the surgeons? And he goes, no, I'm not going to. I knew the risks that I was taking. And people are human. It's okay. And the fact that he didn't sue him just goes to show that, and you nearly died. I think it's easy to say these things and take full ownership for you, whatever, right? It's easy to say these things, but on the brink of death, he still lived by this, which is I respect him so much for that, man, because it just goes to show he's actually a really compassionate, he's actually very forgiving, and he actually takes full ownership of his own journey. I made the decision to get this surgery. I knew the risks involved. I thought, wow, that's full take. Whereas I don't know about myself. If that happened, I feel like I'm not that enlightened, and I would have blamed the surgeons, at least blamed them. But it was amazing to see that he didn't even blame them.
It's probably the greatest pathway to freedom.
Not to blame people?
Is to take full responsibility.
Ownership. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, full on.
Because a lot of the times, especially if we're in our minds and our egos and stuff, we only want to take responsibility for the good things.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? It's like, hey, did this, or I won, it was all me, amazing, blah, blah. But then something bad happens, it's like, oh, that's Vin's fault. Right? Yeah. If Vin just sort of stepped it up that day, it would have been a little bit better. But yeah, when we're winning, like I was amazing. But yeah, that is, I think, how you truly do get to freedom. Because once you are responsible and you realize this, and again, you know, going back maybe into the world of the spiritual a little bit, but that's what it's ultimately about. It's about all beings are connected. Everything's kind of interrelated. We're all part of this. So when we start separating ourselves, that's maybe when we don't really feel that freedom. And I think responsibility is just a very big controllable that we have where, it's like something good happens, something bad happens. Even though I might not have wanted it, it might not have been my preference, it can still ultimately become your responsibility. You know, like if a close one, somebody close to you dies or passes away or you lose your business, you obviously don't want that outcome.
Yeah.
but it is part of your life. And then you have a choice whether you're going to assume responsibility for that or not. Are you going to run away from it, or will you actually step into it and then let it teach you something or help you grow in some way? And that's what I think people like Arnold embody as well. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to have the hurdles, I'm going to have the setbacks, I'm going to have the naysayers, but they just keep kind of navigating through that, knowing that it's all part of it and they're responsible for all of it if that's their mindset.
Yeah, I think it's such a powerful mindset, and I like that you linked it to freedom, because I never thought about it taking full ownership to freedom before. That's a really good connection. What one quick thought I had here that I didn't say in the naysayer section is that he says, ignore the naysayers because they have never done anything big themselves. Yeah. Otherwise, they would be encouraging you instead.
That's very true.
That's a pretty cool statement. I had to just throw that one in there. Again, it's ignore the naysayers. It's because they've never done anything big themselves. It's why they're naysayers. Otherwise, they would be encouraging you. You think about all the people that encourage you in your life. They tend to be the people who've done things. Yeah. They tend to be the people who didn't think small, had big vision for themselves. And they're the ones encouraging you to think bigger, right? And then you think about who the naysayers are. They tend to be the people who play it really safe and haven't really done anything. And it's okay. Like I look at that with more empathy now. I don't look at that and go, oh, damn you naysayer. It's kind of, damn it. That kind of sucks. You don't have someone in your life to be able to open up your mind to the possibilities of what this life can be.
But also naysayers are a beautiful form of motivation. Like if you
he uses it as a beautiful form of motivation.
Like I agree though too. Like I remember when we were starting Future Golf, so many naysayers. Like there's like this idea will never work. Young people will never play golf. It's not going to happen here. Like not going to get into all the clubs and all that. And that's a beautiful thing to actually test how strong your vision is. Right? Because if you're sitting there and while you're getting those rebuttals to your vision or your dreams or whatever, but you're still relatively comfortable to keep pursuing it, and you go down that path anyway, it's probably a sign that you're aligned with your vision. Because if everyone's just all around you and they're like, hey, that's a great idea, Vin, you should definitely do it. You're like, well, I was going to do it.
Yeah, I was going to do it anyway. Thanks.
But the actual story, it's really better when you've got the naysayers, right? As you look at it and you sort of play it out.
That connects to his chapter 4 where he says, sell, sell, sell. You have to learn how to sell. And the first person you have to sell your vision on is yourself. Right. So I think naysayers allow you to validate your own vision.
Can you keep rebutting?
Can you keep
countering it?
Well, I don't even think you need to rebut it or even counter it. It's more in the face of the naysayers, as they naysay, are you able to go, well, thanks for your opinion and keep going? Because if you can, that means, you've got a pretty solid vision there. That's really cool. I like that. Yeah. Well, I mean, chapter 3. Yep. All right. Chapter 3. Work your ass off. I love the way he titles stuff. I love the way he talks about his lessons. Yeah. Working your ass off that's my jam. I like that. I enjoy it. But I think you've taught me something, because again, Arnold's philosophy of this is, his famous quote is, you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in your pockets. I love his quotes. They're the best.
He's got great analogies.
He's got great analogies. Well, it depends. I've seen people from Cirque du Soleil climb the ladder of success with their hands in their pockets. But look, I think something that I'm going to add on to this one is something you've taught me. I think something you've taught me that has been really awesome is that I used to just work hard, and then I'd get okay levels of achievements and okay progress. But one of the coolest things that I've learned from you in the last few years is you've helped me understand strategy and the power of strategy. Because I used to just work hard with no strategy. I really did, man. And I think I would accidentally achieve success. Because I just kind of, like, again, I shoot 1,000 arrows. One of them gets in. I'm like, yeah. Then that means I'll just shoot 20,000 arrows and I'll get 20 in, right? And that's the kind of way I approached it. But it works. It works. It does work. It does work. But this is one of the first years, I would have to say, where I fully understood the lesson you've taught me with strategy. This year has been one of the most highly strategic years of my life. And it's because of you. So then now I've been able now to reduce the intensity, but when I'm intense, I still get really intense. Yeah. So I'm able to reduce the time at which I'm intense, but the frequency of the arrows going in, it has increased significantly. But that's because I'm now not just working harder. I first learned how to work smarter, then I continue to work harder. And that's what changed everything.
It's a crazy combination.
It's a crazy combination, but I didn't have this combination
like,
before you.
Watching you play that game of your work ethic mixed with just a little
Your
bit
strategy.
more, like a little bit more strategy. It's like, it's pretty crazy.
It was so cool to see.
Well, it flips stuff for me as well. I'm like, I just got to work a little bit harder with this strategy. But it's hard,
that's
man. Working hard's like strategy's easier than working hard. Like that's
strategy is hard. You see, working hard is easy, right? So it's funny how we're both ends
we
of
need to
the spectrum.
This is where we come in, like together on it. But like it's But I think any doubts I had on that mixture anyway, watching you play that game over the last sort of 12 months, it's been inspiring to watch. To be honest, like what you've given that we are heading into the next year, and you're joking at the start of the episode that you've peaked or whatever, but like,
no, I still think that.
Yeah, I don't. But it's mind blowing just to see how that combination.
If we wrapped it up in a sentence, it's if you work hard without strategy, it's aimless. And if you have strategy without working hard, it's pointless. It's useless. Right? Nothing really eventuates. It's the combination of both. So that's why when I read this chapter about work your ass off, I'm like, wow, I've always had a really good work ethic because of my mum and my dad. They really taught me the work ethic necessary to make your dreams come true. My mum and dad are people who left a war-torn country, rebuilt their entire lives. And they only had one gear, and their gear was, we're just going to work really hard. Whereas I think, again, just, wanted to say thank you, man. You've always spoken about the importance of strategy. And I used to always look at your strategy like, strategy.
What is this?
What is this
esoteric
strategy?
term?
And I think I've finally learned how powerful it is. So I looked at this chapter. I thought of you a lot. I was like, wow, my hard work this year has been highly strategic because of you.
No, dude. Well, just watching you play a game this year has been, just a privilege and an honor. So,
thanks,
a small part in that. But it's been awesome.
One of the other things this book talks about too is pain, sacrifice. Pain and sacrifice is necessary for growth. It's weird. I think I forgot about that. Yeah, I think it's lessons we need to continually learn over and over and over again. Is that if you want, I don't know. I don't think you can avoid it if you want more growth.
You have to. You have to go into that uncomfortable realm. For sure. For growth, absolutely.
I think it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's like things went wrong this year for me. Like you mentioned before, the blackout that we had. Or not even the blackout, but I'm now starting to teach in different ways online, and I've packaged my programs together in different ways, and it meant there's more complexity. It meant that we had to let some people down. It meant people got upset. All of these different things. But I kind of had to go through that in order to grow.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I could have just kept doing what I was doing, and then nothing would have changed. It's kind of acknowledging as well that, man, climbing the ladder of success is often filled with pain and sacrifice.
And I'll nearly put there's nearly two components here of pain. There's probably aligned pain, and then there's misaligned pain.
Yeah, when there's useless pain, right?
Yeah, like you don't want to just experience pain for no reason or have it imposed on you where it's not going to give you that benefit. If you can, you want that pain to be in alignment with where you're heading.
Yeah, well, he's got a line here that addresses that, where he says, he goes, when you quit something, it destroys character. And in the same sentence, he says, and at the same time, enduring pain for no reason is stupid. I love how blunt he is. Stupid. Like, I love how, it's true though. And I think when you don't have a clear vision, when you don't have a clear plan, you could be suffering for no reason.
Changing tact as well on that. I just saw a line just pop up on mine in this chapter, which I just love, and it just reminds me of you a lot. It's like, do what you say you're going to do, and try to do it a little better than you said you would do it.
Oh,
that's solid.
That's
you.
That's solid.
That's your Kaizen philosophy.
Well, I try to be that.
Yeah. You never just stop. It's like, hey, this is it. This is what we need to do. You're not like, oh yeah, it's done now. You're like, what else?
Yeah.
There's always like a what else. And I love that mindset and that mentality you bring to everything that you do. Like it's not enough to just have a podcast. No, we need a studio. We need the lighting. We need it to be edited. We need all, like, it's always that. And I love how you're always pushing the boundaries there for excellence. Like, it's cool. And I think I love that line as well, because a lot of the times we'll make promises and we don't deliver. Right? Like, to me, that's also a really good tagline, that when we say we're going to do something, do it. And then not only just do it,
follow through.
Do it better.
Do it better. Yeah, that's sick.
Like, that's cool. That's a really
cool.
cool concept. Like, I think if you just did that one thing for a year on everything,
your life would change.
It would be massively transformative. Yeah. Like, I highlighted the shit out.
Showing up as a father, showing up as a husband, showing up as a son. Just
if
do it better.
If you make that promise or that commitment, bloody
like
do it and then do it a bit better. I love it. It's not just do it. Like, people are just like, deliver on your promises, but I love the do it better bit. Yeah. That's the bit that's innovation that you just added onto there in one little sentence. I like that. That's cool.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, that's a nugget. Thanks for bringing that one up. Damn. That's a good one. It's interesting because if you ask me the question of why I do it better, because you didn't ask me, so I'm asking myself.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why do I always want to iterate? Why do I always want to change things up and improve things, right? It's because if I didn't, Ali, I'd get bored. Like, what's the alternative? Because, I mean, we all know what happens when we just eat chicken and broccoli for more than one meal. If you eat it 5 meals in a row, you are so bored of the meal, man. Let alone, imagine doing the same thing every single day and not improving it at all. Yeah. I think my biggest thing is that if I no longer want to improve something, it also means I no longer want to do it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If I no longer try to find ways to improve our podcast, if I no longer want to try to find ways to improve my online course, then it signifies the end of that chapter for me. Yeah. It means I'm not going to do that anymore. You know, I that's just how I think of life. Anything that I do, I continually want to improve on it because I continually want to be excited by it. That's cool. If I don't do it, otherwise, why are you playing the game? It's like imagine someone sitting there playing the same game for 30 years and you're sitting there, you're watching them play the game. They're playing like a video game. They're playing it and they're yawning, they're hating it, and they're tired and they're exhausted. And you're like, hey man, why are you playing the game? Yep. Oh, I'm just going to keep playing the game. It's like, well, why?
Yeah. And
there's no fun in that, right?
There's a deeper level of wisdom in what you just said there. We get to choose the quality of energy and effort that we bring to anything that we do. Right? It's never the thing that we're doing that doesn't have the opportunity to increase quality into it. It's our approach towards it.
Right.
Right? Like, you might sit there and be like, oh, I've been in the same job for 10 years or whatever. But imagine if you just go there next week or at the start of the year or whenever it is after your holidays.
And you approach it differently. Yeah.
And you just approach it differently. You're now in control of how that game's played.
Yeah.
So all the energy that it's sapping or that boredom that you feel in all that,
it's just in your approach.
As you were saying that, I'm like, it's very internally driven. Whereas you've got this inbuilt mindset towards nearly anything that you do, right? Whether it's going to be gardening next year, whether it's farming or whatever, you're going to have that same approach. So it doesn't really matter what you end up doing with that mindset. You're going to infuse quality into it and energy into it so that it will turn into something, right? Because it's more your mindset and your approach to it. Whereas a lot of the time, I think, due to a variety of different circumstances, we just start calling it in, you know, and that's people's general approach a lot of the time is I'm just going to go to my job, I'm going to finish my shift and I'm going to go back home. And then every now and again, you'll see that person, like, you know, even walking through the airport, like there was just one staff member today, there was 4 staff members on the plane when I flew in this morning. You could tell there was 3 or 4 just sort of doing their job. Yeah. And then there was this one lady just like so energized, so engaged, like, you know, somebody's bottle of water was leaking in the plane. She's like moving stuff around and like talking and making jokes and doing all these things. And like, she just changed the whole energy of what was going on in that. Right. But that's that type of person bringing that level of life into that situation that they probably didn't have to. Yeah. But I can 100% guarantee at the end of the day, that person is going to be satisfied, fulfilled, will be ready to go. Have more joy in what they do. It wasn't a burden. It wasn't an obligation. It was fully engaged and in the moment. It was cool to watch. Yeah. Right. Somebody doing that. And I think it energized everyone around her. Like early morning flight and everyone's like having a laugh and doing all these things. Right. So it's like a gift that people share.
Isn't that amazing?
It's a really cool concept that you just brought up there.
It's in the approach.
How we approach it.
It's how you think about it. It's how you approach it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that. He also debunks busyness in this chapter, chapter 3. He goes, anyone who says to me that they're busy, he says busyness is bullshit.
Yeah.
And he goes, if it matters to you, you'll make time. I think that's true.
Yeah.
I didn't like swallowing that one. I was like, I'm pretty busy, Arnold. But then the more I thought about it, and the more I sat on that, I was like, man, he's so right. I can't wiggle my way out of this one.
That's one that I struggle with.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like when people are like, I'm busy, it's like, yeah, well, you're wearing that as a badge of honor. But what do you actually mean by that?
Oh, right. As in you don't believe in it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, like
you also don't believe in busyness.
No, I don't really believe in it. Because
I'm kind of like, I'm a bit of
on the
a...
fence?
Yeah, I'm on the fence with it. Well, I mean, I'm more leaning towards it is bullshit. But I'm still slightly defensive about it.
Well, to me, it goes back to responsibility and ownership.
Yeah.
Right? If you go back to because busyness to me is linked to time.
Yeah.
And it's linked to time allocation and management.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even energy a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? Anyone can use the badge of busy. We all get 24 hours. Like, I could sleep for 17 of them and then have 14 things on my task list, and all of a sudden now I'm busy.
No,
right?
he broke it down.
Yeah.
He broke it down. He said you got 24 hours. Most people sleep for 8, right? So after 8 hours, right? Then after that, you also work for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So that's 16 hours gone. So then after 16 hours, you've got 8 hours left. So in those 8 hours, he goes, all right, what do we subtract? Eating, doing chores with family, maybe 3, right? So now you got 5 hours left. And then he goes, you'd maybe do an hour of exercise or something. Now you got 4 hours left. Yeah. And then maybe and I love what he said. He goes, don't take naps and don't rest. Rest and naps are for babies and old people. Yeah. That's it. And if you're not in those categories, don't nap, don't rest. You get that during your sleep.
Napping.
Yeah, I love that. You love napping, do you? And then anyway, he worked out and he goes, okay, and then you play with your kids and whatever. You got 1 hour left. Let's just say you got 1 hour left every day. If you spent 1 hour every day of the year, that's 365 hours. That's the equivalent to someone writing a book.
Yeah. And busyness can exist, right? Because there'll be people listening. They'll be like, yeah, but you don't know my life. Like, I've got kids. Yeah. I'm doing that. It's like, yeah, but you signed up for that.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
no one made those choices for you.
Like you get to wear it as a badge.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things, like, are you wearing it there? Or is it there's probably a lot of things happening, right? But then there is an element there around time management and time effectiveness to an extent, potentially.
Yeah.
But it's also more around, is that a mindset that you're buying into, and is it serving you? You know, just as I'm thinking it out a little bit more, because I know that, like, in different circumstances, we're going to be busy. Like, people are going to be busy with work and they've got lots of things on, but there's probably also an element there about taking responsibility and knowing that that doesn't have to be your narrative either. Yeah. It doesn't have to be the reason why you then can't pursue your dreams or do a couple of things for yourself or nourish yourself or be kind to other people around you, right? Like, all these things, they do have an element of control there. And no one is out, like, for the most part, there's a series of circumstances and choices and decisions that lead us to where we're at in that point. And I think he speaks about that as well. He's like, we do have some things that are just put on us, right? Where we're born, maybe, you know,
the family we're born into.
Yeah, like, absolutely. Yeah. But then we also do have an element of choices that we can make for ourselves to some extent. Some will have more, some will have less. But for the most part now in the world that we live in, there is a little bit of an... If you're listening to this podcast and you've got... Like, if you're hearing this, there's a good chance, because you've got 2 hours to listen to us chat about this. Yeah, you probably do have a little bit of time.
You've got time.
Right?
Yeah,
like, we give you the permission for the next one. Don't listen to this.
Yeah.
And use that 2 hours to do that thing that you need to go and do.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I've heard people combat him on this. Yeah. Because I watch a lot of his videos on YouTube too, and he does
flip out when.
Well, people flip out when you say this, and I
was about to backtrack when I was going down there.
Yeah, I can see you getting a bit scared.
I'm like, shit. I'm going down a hole.
I think you can. I'll jump into this hole with you. Don't worry. Because I like I told you, I'm originally on the fence about it, but the more I listen to him speak, and I've heard him say this many times, and I remember there was a live event he did where, again, he just got grilled by someone in the audience, and at the time it was a lady who grilled him, and she goes, I can't find time. I know you're saying this, but I can't find time. Where am I going to find time? She laid out her entire thing to him, saying everything that she was doing. Do you know what his response was? Sleep faster.
Sleep faster. Sleep faster. Oh no.
He told her to sleep faster. He
I
told her
don't
to
even know
sleep
what that
faster.
means.
No. I just thought it was fantastic. I just thought that's hilarious. That's someone who fully embodies it. Is just sleep faster.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I don't know how to do that. I mean, I didn't know how to extract the wisdom from that, but it's just, I think, again, taking ownership. You take ownership of your own story.
Yeah.
You know, and take ownership of your own situation. Stop allowing that situation to control you and start taking control of it.
There's something really liberating as well, right? Like if you said that you're going to do something and you don't do it, and you're like, I couldn't do it because I was too busy. The word that's maybe nearly more empowering that allows you to take that extreme ownership move is, sorry, I didn't prioritize it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you might have been able to do it,
Yeah.
but you chose other things. Because
Yeah.
if you were busy, that means you just chose to do other things.
Yeah.
Some may have been reactive, some may have just been responsibility, whatever, but it was more important than that thing that you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like the word busy isn't like an overarching blanket term that you can just use an escape parachute.
It's something I use in my reply emails now. My team sends to people who want to spend time with me.
Yeah.
Because of the crazy following now, it's so beautiful. I mean, I love receiving these. It's just, but I don't have time to be able to hang out with everyone that wants to hang out.
Yeah.
So
You're too busy.
Well, that's what I used to write, bro. But that's what I used to write.
Yeah.
I used to reply to those myself and go, hey, I'd love to, man, but I'm too busy. Whereas now the email response is, hey, Vinh would love to. However, he's prioritizing his family in 2024 and wants to spend more time with his newborn daughter. Right? So I'm using that language now as opposed to saying the words I'm too busy.
Yeah.
I actually don't often say that I'm too busy. I've kind of removed it from my language because of this very
language.
point.
Yeah.
I'm not busy. I've just got different priorities at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just
It's a cool mindset shift because
it does change it a little
it does
bit.
change a lot, man.
Like-
because then you feel less frantic.
Well, busy makes me feel like it's out of my control.
And it's chaos.
And it's chaos and it's like there. Whereas if I'm saying that, sorry, I just couldn't do that because I didn't prioritize it. All of a sudden now I'm like, I just didn't do it because, to be honest, when I added it all up, it wasn't something that wanted to
I mean,
do.
it sounds terrible on the receiving end of that because it's like, wow, you're a dick, right? But how about when you
Internally, it's
internally, it's really, really empowering.
So maybe
right?
there's a better way to communicate it. We're still figuring this one out.
No. You're figuring it out.
No.
Because if you're saying, hey, I would love to hang out, but hanging out with you is not a priority of mine, that is an ouchies.
I'd be like, sorry, I'm busy.
Sorry, I'm busy.
Yeah.
But I think people understand if you're saying, hey, as much as I'd love to be able to spend time together, I'm really prioritizing the birth of my daughter. You know, and I think people would understand that.
I'm just going to use yours.
Yeah, go for it. Even though you don't have a daughter.
Prioritizing
use
the birth of my daughter. It's like,
Yeah, just go, sorry, I'm just prioritizing the birth of Vinh's daughter.
I love that.
Chapter 4. Sell. I really connected with this one because he praised communication skills in this one.
This is your chapter. Take it away, communication God.
He just said, you need to be able to communicate your vision, promote it, and sell it. And then at the end of that, he added his innovation where he says, and then you also have to know who to sell it to. So again, you got the vision, you allowed yourself to think big, so you've got a really big vision, you ignore the naysayers, you don't think small, you work your ass off, but then you also have to know how to sell your vision. I love that. It was a very sequential book. I really enjoyed it. So again, this is the most common problem I see in my world, in my realm, is that, man, the fact that Peter and I, my team, we can put together content on social media and now reach on average of 25 plus million people per month. The influx of people's stories is overwhelming. And the most common thread, the most common story is, I'm really good at what I do. I'm freaking better than Brad. Brad's a piece of crap, but he always gets the promotion, right? Why does my manager not see that I'm better? That story is just repetitive now because I hear it all the time in all different industries. And it's because they don't know how to sell themselves. In other words, they don't know how to communicate their value. So I think something that Arnold has done exceptionally well is he has been able to communicate his value against all odds. Like you said, when he went into the movie, wanted to be an action hero, everyone saw him as the villain because he sounded weird and he looked like just ridiculous. And he goes, no, I want to be the hero, right? He wants to be the hero. And he became one of the greatest heroes of all time. And then after that, he goes, I don't want to be hero anymore. I want to be comedy man. See, some reason sounds a bit Asian there. I don't know why. That was weird.
I'm just going to let you roll with it.
Just let me roll with it. And then he became one of the, this is the funniest movies. I just recently watched Twins again. And it was the funniest thing ever.
You know the story behind Twins and the deal that he carved with Twins, right?
Tell me more about it.
So most of the time with movies, they front
Oh,
end it,
yeah.
you get your 10 mil or 20 mil. But because it was him and Danny DeVito back then,
Well, it was such an outrageous movie.
outrageous concept.
Yeah.
So then he's like, all right, well, we'll take no money up front
Yeah.
and then we'll back end it. And
We'll get a cut of it.
we'll get a cut of that. And I'm pretty sure, like, I heard somebody speaking about it recently. I think that movie's gone and grossed something like $1.2 billion.
Oh,
Somewhere around there. And I think the deal that they carved from all reports is that they both took a 40% slice of profits above like 100 million or something. So he's made more money from Twins, and I think he says it in the book.
Yeah, he does.
He says he's made more money of Twins, but it is like astronomically more than any other.
More than
normal
any other
movie.
combined, man.
And the best part is, when they got down to it, once they approved it, they actually tried to front end it, and him and Danny DeVito said no. So
That's
they were like,
brilliant.
it's fine, we won't take any, because they believed it so much deep down that this is going to work. And I'm pretty sure not many movie deals have been negotiated like that since.
Well, I think that is also their ability to sell something. Because if you think about what you said in that story, no one wanted to do it. So they had to remove all risk for all the parties involved by not taking anything up front, which is, again, I think at that time unheard of in the Hollywood industry, right? So, and they were also able to sell something that I also believe was unheard of, right? It's you got the greatest action hero, this massive dude, and then this really short, funny guy. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It was genius,
Yeah,
man.
it was so good.
But it's his ability to sell himself as an actor, his ability to sell himself as a governor, his ability. It's unbelievable how he's able to sell himself, and I think it's in his ability to communicate.
Yes. And just such a high level of self-belief and confidence, right?
Yeah.
And to be so immovable in his visions. I think that when you actually look at this is truly somebody who's a master of vision and execution.
Yeah.
Like
Definitely.
realistically,
Definitely,
like he is in that.
He dreams it and he builds it.
Yeah. Like there's maybe, and to do it from the beautiful part about it too as well is he's done it. His starting point wasn't one-off advantage.
Yeah.
It's not like this was predestined. So he's done it really against the odds, and I think that makes it even more impressive when you hear these stories of multiple transformations with severe resisting forces against you in a highly competitive environment, and then to pull it off over and over again. It's pretty crazy.
It is.
Yeah, well played.
The one part that I don't want us to miss is, again, I'll read the sentence. You need to be able to communicate your vision, promote it, sell it, and then you need to know who to sell it to. This is where he's really smart, because he knows who to sell it to. It reminded me when I was younger, man, and I used to do close-up magic. When I was doing close-up magic, I used to walk into businesses and then sell to the receptionist.
Yeah.
And I'd get nowhere. And I'd get so demoralized because I'd go and I'd be like, oh, I'm in this business. Hey, do you have functions? Can you put me in touch with the right person? Can you do that? And then they would always just push me away. And then I confused that with no one needs close-up magicians in Adelaide. I've completely failed. But then as I kind of thought about it more, I was like, oh, maybe I'm just doing it to the wrong person. And then I started to realize that every large organization has an event manager. So now I would go on LinkedIn and I would search event managers for every single large company within South Australia, found them on LinkedIn, added them on LinkedIn, and then started the conversation with them. I got gigs all over Adelaide. So something that felt impossible, it was only impossible because even though I knew how to communicate, I was communicating to the wrong person. So that was such a wonderful line of wisdom there, is that with whatever you're currently doing, are you selling to the right person? Because you could have all the communication skills, the greatest vision, all the technical ability, but then if you sell to the wrong person, nothing happens.
It's very similar to negotiation. Who's the key decision maker here?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So I love that. I love that lesson there. So important as, moving forward into the next chapters of life. I want to make sure I remember that too.
Just going back to your point as well, just around having that level of talent and not communicating it to the highest level. Like
that's tough, man.
The greatest example in my life is one of my really good friends, Michael. Right? You do a bit of stuff with Mike now as well.
Yeah.
And me and Mike, I've known him for over 20 years.
Wow.
And he's so humble in a sense that for those 20 years, like we'd talk about work and all that, but I never truly knew what he did.
Yeah. What, really?
And then while he's sitting there, it's only just probably in the last few years where I started He got a
For
little bit
20
more-
years,
he
you
started
didn't
getting-
know.
Well, he started getting a bit more confident. He's like talking about what he does a little bit more. I'm like, I need all of this stuff that you're doing right now. And now he does like heaps of work with us. He's
Does
done
work with me.
you. Yeah.
He's found
And
me
it's
2 team
just
members.
like that. But I actually do think looking back, one of the things was probably even once you got into the orbit a little bit, it was that message. And I think you mentioned this a little while ago, but that message around, technical skills versus how you then communicate it really hit home. And I think that is such a big gift that you've given to a lot of people out there, where there is a vast majority of people that truly do undersell their gifts and their talent, and then they don't really get to reach the world.
I think it's more common in Australia, and it's even more common in New Zealand. It's the whole tall poppy syndrome thing. It's people, because I think in our country, we really value humility.
Yeah.
And I think we value it so much that it can damage our progress at times. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of the most wonderful things that America taught me. I even though my time in America was really hard, there was a lot of work, and I felt like I didn't spend enough time with my family and everything, I still wouldn't look at that and go, I wish I didn't do it. I'm glad I did it. Because America taught me some incredible lessons. And one of the lessons Americans have taught me, which I really love, is, again, dream big. Don't play small. Like, be humble, but not at the expense of being able to surely true your worth and your value. And I'll never forget this. I still remember one of the first clients I pitched to in the US. Beautiful lady. And I remember I pitched myself, and she goes, offline, she after the call, she goes, look, I'm going to set up another call for you, and I need you to sell harder because I don't want to work with the competitors. I want to work with you. But the way you pitched it made it seem as if you're the most average keynote speaker on the planet. Right? And so again, then I got a second shot, and I got the gig only because she encouraged me to sell myself more, because I was underselling myself. I was like, oh yeah, I've only been doing this for 4 or 5 years. She goes, no. I've been doing this for a full 5 years. Not I've only been doing it for 5 years. I'm still new at this. No. I'm really good at what I do, and I'm going to be able to help you put on an incredible conference. I'll help you set the tone. And I was like, wow, I never would say stuff like that. I'll be like, oh yeah, maybe I'll better help, increase the good vibes. It's like, so it's crazy in that it's taught me how to not be shy with the value that I can actually provide.
You've always said that about your time in the States.
Yeah.
Even when you go back,
it changed
you always
me,
come
man.
back energized, and you're like,
absolutely. I
there is that
love
level of
America, man.
Yeah, and even when you go to American sporting events,
The
energy in there is
the
so
hockey game we
different.
went to.
Yeah, it's like there's dancing,
Next
and
level.
cheery, and like
Shooting shirts at you.
I think it's a pretty cool thing about Americans, about
Yeah.
how well they outwardly express themselves.
I love that.
Whereas we keep that very
Yeah.
internal. There's a lot of cultures probably like that. Like, Japanese culture is very similar. It's very humble, and
I think there's beauty in all cultures, but I think it's like, I feel really sad for my American friends, because they've gotten the short end of the stick recently. People look at Americans and they often give them a lot of shit, but I'm like, no, I've met Americans and I love them, man. They're just really good people. You only hear about the bad stuff because in every culture there's bad people. It's just some of the bad ones over there make a lot of noise. That's all. But man, when you go over there and you meet them, beautiful humans, man. Beautiful people, and they all have dreams, man. So I love that about them.
I really do think it's the core of like the beauty of America, especially say, recent times probably been a little bit different, but say the 50, 60 years preceding that, is Americans were the greatest storytellers.
Yeah.
They use the mediums like if we think about, for most of the world, we're watching Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
These are the hero stories. These are the things that made us dream big. Like, it all sort of came from there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the role that they played for the world, right? Or they were the leaders of the free world, and
So interesting. I mean, one more quick story about America. While I was there, one of the most beautiful things I saw, and I never saw this in Australia, was when I was at airports, people would walk up to the soldiers and say, hey, thanks for your service. Shake their hand, give them a hug. I've seen Australian soldiers all the time. And I remember when I went to America, I came back and then I was at an airport and I saw an Australian soldier. I immediately went up to him and I go, hey man, thanks for your service. And he goes, oh man, no worries. Like, wow, like what made you come up to me and say that?
Like first time
it's ever happened to that. And I went, whoa, this is crazy. I think we're so humble sometimes that we we don't even praise those around us for the beautiful things that they do, you know, because we want to keep them level-headed. Hey, man, I don't want you to become a tall poppy. I want you to stay level-headed. You know, you're good, but you're not that good, kind of thing. So I think we miss out on a lot of those beautiful traits that I saw over there. And last thing I'll say about America, my romantic love for them is just, I love the word they use, and the word is service. How can we serve you? That's freaking cool. And Arnie has that in him. He loves America, and you can feel his love for America in this book, where the final chapter, not to give it away, but it's about giving back. And in this stage of his life now, he's all about, how do I give back? How do I give back to this state, this country that has given me everything I could have wanted in this life? I think that's so beautiful. So yeah.
No, I love his journey throughout the book, where it starts about his own sort of vision and what he wanted to do for himself, and then it does kind of end organically there. And how do you then?
But before we end prematurely,
yes,
we've got chapter 5, shifting gears. You know, when he speaks about, when things go bad, I shift gears.
Yep.
When this happens, I shift gears. I love that chapter. I love that concept. I've been saying that a lot with my team in the last 2 weeks. As I've been reading this, anytime we're doing something really serious, I'm like, all right, let's shift gears now. Let's move towards a little more playfulness. Or let's shift gears. Let's go back into seriousness.
Well, yeah, I'd two sort of notes in this one. One is around negativity bias.
Yeah, you talked about that here.
And I think that's a really big concept that's worth exploring
let's jam
a
on it.
little bit. Just because, it's simplest form, it's that we overvalue the bad things that happen versus the good things.
Yeah.
We're just sort of pre-programmed for that. And just having an understanding and awareness of that can help us navigate challenges and not letting them and that's the thing, right? Like 80%, 90% of life can be going really well. That 5% or that one thing that gets into our mind, it can nearly reduce the quality of the other 80 or 90% of the things that are going well. And it's just having objective ways to be able to measure that a little bit. Like we do that through journaling and tracking and all of that, so that we just don't buy into an emotional one single event. We look at it holistically over a period of time.
Well, let me just share with everyone pragmatically what it is. One of the reasons why one thing doesn't throw us off as much anymore is because by tracking all of the wonderful things that happen in our month, and we've got a doc, you've got a doc that you share with me that you do this, and we share these docs where we can see all the amazing things we've done in the month. Is the moment anything bad happens to me now, you've been able to help me train myself I go immediately to that doc the moment the bad thing happens, and I go, yeah, I get that bad thing happened, but I've also have 26 other things that were great that happened this month. And then immediately helps you navigate that. Whereas before, I didn't hold those 26 wonderful things that happened. So the moment the bad thing happens, that's the only thing I see, and that's the only thing I recognize that's in front of me. So then I would say things like, oh man, life's shit. Where it's like, is it? Is it really? No. There's still 26 things going for you that happened that month.
Having lists like that, it does actually get you to proportionately size that negative thing.
And proportionally size your reaction to it.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a very empowering tool, I think.
Very empowering tool. I think it's psychologically really robust.
I think the other thing that I'm learning a lot more about as well is just emotions and how emotions process within us. And then they lead to that. Like if we think about, even when we do phrase something as negative or positive, they are largely linked to an emotion. And it's nearly a practice around how can you then describe and define what that emotion is. Labeling it, you know, and getting through that a little bit. And that's probably something that I've personally haven't been that great at. Yeah. Like I'll just go more optimistic. I'll gravitate to the good things. But then there's probably an element there where, didn't give the emotions that level of light that they deserved, and sometimes they could linger around a little bit longer than they probably should. But yeah.
What else did you have for this chapter?
This other one was risk, and about risk being relative, right? Because we'll sit there and sometimes we'll feel like, wow, something's so risky, I can't do it. And it's just getting into the mindset, well, it might be risky to me right now where I am, but that risk is relative. It's not an objective measure for how to make decisions. So when you're sitting there and risks often is linked to a perception of fear, but it's also linked to what we may lose by taking a course of action. So if you can sit there and really break that down, it means that maybe you just don't get stuck in a risk-averse loop. It's like, hey, well, I want to do this thing. The mind might say this is too risky. Now's not the time to do it. It's maybe thinking, well, why not? What do I actually have to lose? And if what you have to lose isn't that great, it's probably an indicator that you should go and do it. And not just do it because you've labeled yourself as somebody who's risk averse, or I don't do things like that, or it's not in my nature, whatever. It's actually break it down on what that specific thing really is.
Or see it for what it is, not what you think it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when you tie it back to what are you actually going to lose, that can be quite liberating. And especially for people that are early on, generally the risks are probably going to be lower.
Which is the greatest time to take risks.
Uni students.
Yeah.
Like
or even if you haven't taken any risks.
Yep.
If you haven't taken any risks so far,
now's the time
that's
to do
also
it.
great. Because it means, again, there's not as much as you think that you could lose. And I think you're right. It's like, again, I've said this many times as well. It's like when you know, the movies that are the scary movies that are the most scary are the ones where you never see the monster.
Yeah.
But then when you can see the monster after a while, it's not as scary anymore. You know, it's like the first Predator was really scary because you couldn't see him. He was invisible and he was so scary. But then after you see him all the time now and you see him in Alien versus Predator and people all wear his masks all around, that face isn't as scary anymore, right? It's slightly charming. So it's not as scary anymore. So I think as you look at all of your fears and your risks more closely, they become a lot less scary. They become a lot less scary.
Love that.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I mean, what I took from that chapter is it's the ability to shift gears. It's the ability to shift how you feel and move into a different space. I kind of like that. And I like that he uses the words gears, shifting gears, because I like doing that. You know, there's times where it's why environment is so important to me. It's why I have this studio. I could have things that are going on in my life that are really tough. But when I go into the studio, environment, music helps me shift gears. I go, okay, I understand that. When I leave the studio, all of that pain, all of that difficulty, all of those challenges will be waiting for me outside that door. That's okay. That's all right. I'll re-engage with you after. We'll dance again after. But for now, I've got work I have to do.
That's cool.
But I've been able to train that because I've been able to build an environment and space and just habits that have allowed me to switch gears.
There's a cool pragmatic maybe lesson in that as well, where if you're feeling that, have a list of environments that you can enter that do allow you to shift that.
Yeah. And people.
Yeah.
It's environments, it's people that help you shift gears. You know, we always have that one friend where we're around and we can joke around with, right? Like every time we're around Craig, we're just like super silly. We're really playful. We have a lot of fun. And, you know, it's like we got different people for different things. And I think you just have to be really clear on who those people are. So when you do find yourself stuck in second gear or first gear and you need to be in fifth gear, well, go find that person. Go find those environments that can help you switch gears. Yep. Yeah, I think that's really powerful.
That another pot shot at Craig that we only hang out when we
there's no depth there. There's no depth. There's no depth. It's like just
when we want to be in first gear. It's
when you want depth and meaning, you go elsewhere.
You go to Dan.
Go to Dan. You know, Peter. Yeah, you know the people who have depth. Why is he still here? It's weird. It's weird. He loves it. Loves a good beating. Chapter 6. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. I don't even know what I'm saying. I don't even know why I said it like that. Yeah. Chapter 6. All right. You've got the heading for chapter 6.
Shut your mouth. Open your mind.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is.
What I should be doing. You know how it is though. For those listeners who it was funny because I had a class once. I was teaching online and Craig and I take the piss a lot, right? Yeah. So in the class we play as if I hate Craig and Craig hates me and we hate each other. And I remember in one of the classes, someone wrote, like, Vin, I love the content. Like, it's all really good, but do you guys have to be really mean to each other? Like, you guys are great people. We're like, oh man, they couldn't see through it that it's a joke. So I thought it was funny. And then I was like, no, we can't.
Oh, is it a joke?
No, it's not a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a joke.
So,
of course it's not.
So they're right.
Yeah, they're right. They're right. Of course. All right.
Cool.
Shut your mouth, open your mind.
Yeah. Just did it back to me.
Yeah, did it back to you, Ali. Shut your mouth, open your mind.
So that's a really nice like sort of thing. Just if you're talking too much or you've lost attention, shut your mouth, open your mind.
I think the core of this chapter is about being curious. It's all about curiosity and remaining curious. And he's really humble in that he says, like when he wanted to be the governor, he had no idea about how to be a governor. But he thinks his superpower is that he was curious about it and he wanted to help people. He wanted to be useful. So he just got all these incredible people around him because of the leverage he had with his fame, and he learned from them. He remained curious and he learned about how to be a good governor.
Love it.
I mean, curiosity again.
Huge.
Such an important thing. I think we lose curiosity as we get older.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the most beautiful things about kids, and I see this in your kids as much as I see it in mine, is that they're so curious about things. Like I saw Xander the other day. We've got this little toy that draws automatically. So you put a pen on it, it holds the pen, it's got wheels, and it draws whatever animal you want it to draw. It's freaking cool. And then I saw him the other day. He was just sitting there, but he picked it up and he was just looking under it going, like, I could see him thinking. And to me, that was curiosity at play, because he's like, and he puts it back down and then it finds where it was before and then it continues to draw that and he picks it up again. To me, that's him being curious about, how does this thing work? Like, how the hell is it doing this? And it was so cool seeing curiosity in him. And it just makes me reflect, because then later that day we'd go grocery shopping and I'm pushing the trolley around with him and I see adults everywhere. We're no longer curious. I don't see people being curious there at all. You see people walking around the city. No one's curious. Everyone's just got, I've got a task, I've got a job, I've got an agenda of what I need to do today. I'm just going to go do those things. There's no curiosity anymore, man. Even myself, I catch myself as well. Same thing. If I didn't schedule time to dream up whatever I wanted to dream, I don't think I'd spend any time being curious.
Yeah. And it's true. And it gets harder, I think, as we get older. Curiosity. It's,
Well,
it's that muscle
Yeah.
that you have to keep there. And I think that's why everyone loves that adult in their life that's still got that childlike curiosity and, playfulness about things. And we get energized by that. And you're right. Kids have it in droves, and somewhere along the line, it does probably reduce a bit. But yeah, it's another one of those, it's so energizing when you get curious about something, you go down that rabbit hole and then you learn more things. Like you mentioned alpaca poo earlier, right? Like I could see how curious you were about
I'm so curious
farming
about it.
and like you still got that
Yeah.
at a really high level.
You know what you can do with alpaca poo?
What?
You can mix it with water and it becomes what they call alpaca tea. And you don't drink it.
No.
Don't drink it, but you can just water it straight into your garden.
Yeah.
One of the most nutritious things you can do.
Craig's like taking notes of like drink alpaca.
He skipped a step. No, don't do it. Yeah, but it's so incredible. It's like, and I think that curiosity for me, it brings about a zest in life that I think I wouldn't have if I wasn't curious. Because curiosity means what? Curiosity to me means I'm bringing new information into my brain. And new information, what it does to my brain is it tickles my brain. How often does your brain get tickled? Right? I remember when I sat there and I learned about alpaca tea, I went, damn, that's some cool shit right there. Like literally, that's some cool shit. That's amazing. How cool is that? Here's the other cool thing. I'm gonna say it too, because I'm gonna become a farmer. The best place to place a chicken coop is right next to where your orchard and all your fruit trees are. Do you know why? Because what happens is when the apples fall, and normally when apples fall and fruits fall and you just let them rot, right? You just think, oh, I'm just going to let it fertilize the ground. What you can do now instead is you can take those fallen plums, apples, apricots, pears, take them, throw them into the chicken coop next door. Chickens eat those fruit. They nourish the ground. You then can take that fertilizer there, nourish the tree. And that's the freaking circle of life.
That is circle of life.
The apples feed the chicken feeds the ground feeds the trees, and it's a circle. And byproduct, you get eggs. Isn't that a tickle your brain moment? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I logically knew.
I'm getting more curious about farming, like as we
bro,
we go through
it's unbelievable. Yeah. But here's the thing: I've always known that psychologically in a way. Oh no, sorry, not psychologically, logically. Yeah. But then when I was curious about it and I looked it up, and then because I'm like, where do you place the chicken coop? What's the optimal placement for the chicken coop? Like I want to know, man. I don't want to just put it randomly.
You've been wanting a chicken coop for 3 years.
3 years I've wanted a chicken coop.
This has been
and I've been curious about it for 3 years.
Yeah.
But Pei-Wen only, she's opened the gate. She's like, look, we're going to do it. I'm like, yeah. And the moment she opened that door, I allowed myself to be curious, right?
Yeah.
So when I was listening to these lessons in these videos and I was reading about it, I went, this is amazing. My brain lit up. Whereas often I don't do stuff like that. Often I just sit there and just consume an episode of Netflix of something that I didn't really even want to watch, but I'm watching it only because there was nothing else to watch, and Pei-Wen and I couldn't decide on what to watch, so we just watched something shitty. And then I'm just destroying and decaying my brain. Whereas when I'm curious, oh man, it lights up my brain, it lights up my life. And even Pei-Wen got inspired by it. That's the power of curiosity, man.
I can feel your energy right now. You're in.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just kind of went on a rant there.
really in.
Yeah, I'm locked in. Yeah, that's.
That's
But again,
good.
I think that is an
We'll
example
do a
of what
whole
curiosity
episode
can
on
do.
farming at some point.
Bro, we have to do.
Yeah.
The day you buy me the cow
Yeah.
will be a great day.
Yeah.
That'll be a great day when you buy me my Highlander.
Yeah.
It'll be such an exciting. You have to buy me two because they can't be on their own.
Great.
Can you buy me two?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Ollie. No, because it'll be lonely, man. If you bought one, it'll be super lonely. You got to get two.
Yeah. No, it needs a friend.
All right, so that's the power of curiosity there. Anything else you want to mention on that one?
No, the only other one there was probably just the quote highlighted here. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak.
Yeah, the importance of listening.
Yeah, just listening. And I think he was, not only was he curious, it seemed like he really took in a lot of information in every environment. Like that was nearly part of the game for him, was going into these things, being a sponge, learning as much as he could, being curious. It's a pretty powerful combination again.
Yeah.
In terms of skill development and probably excelling in any environment.
Well, it's again not believing that you know it all.
Yeah.
One of the funniest things that I always see in my comment section is when I have a video and I've got a bit of a strong opinion in that video and I'm saying something about something and then someone disagrees with it. And it drives them crazy though. Like they'll write a paragraph about how they disagree with it. I think something that I've learned is that as I'm opening my mind, it doesn't mean I have to accept everything that everybody says.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean that. It means you can be a selective sponge. You don't just have to be an overall sponge and sponge everything. Be selective about it. And there are going to be things that people say that you completely agree with, and there'll be things that you don't agree with, and that's okay. And I think it's even more important to listen to the things you don't agree with. Because if you always just listen to the things you agree with, I think that potentially means you don't bloody learn anything new. I think when you find people who you don't agree with, if you listen carefully, that allows you to inspect your way of thinking and go, instead of just emotionally reacting to this, why don't I just sit with it for a bit? Sit in that discomfort to go, could I be wrong? Right? And I think that's really important. You know, there's been some things that I normally don't listen to that I've started listening to. I'm like, I'm just going to listen to it just because it makes me feel a little bit, I don't feel that as comfortable about it, but it's kind of cool because it helps you expand your thinking. So while you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, understand that you don't have to agree with everything you listen to.
Absolutely.
But also be open. Open your mind. You know, it's nice to have conversations with people who don't fully agree with you because they're the people who help stretch your mind and stretch your thinking.
That's right. And you don't have to act on everything that people tell you what to
Yeah,
do,
you
right?
don't. You don't.
Like
Just-
we have lots of advisors and all that, and I love it. Like I'll sit there and I'll do the same thing. I'll write the note down when I get challenged on something or I hear a concept or new insight that nearly makes me feel uncomfortable
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, I want to now go and investigate that.
Yeah.
Like why in that moment was my natural reaction to resist that when somebody's actually brought it forward in alignment with what we were discussing. And it's usually a pretty good signal that there is a potential growth area or a blind spot or something that I'm missing there that we need to then explore a bit further.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Final one.
Final one.
Break your mirrors.
Wrap it up.
Break your mirrors. I think the one that the main lesson I took from this one is, and again metaphorically, is that, you know, Arnold said he spent his whole life looking in the mirror, looking at himself, learning how he can grow his muscles, how he can get better. And he goes, he wanted to break the mirror in the end because he didn't want to make it about him anymore. He wanted to make it about others, contribution. And this is really aligned again with one of my biggest values. Again, I always say this at it's nauseating how much I say this one, but it's when you eat the fruit, remember those who help you plant the tree. It's a beautiful Vietnamese quote. I love that quote. And in this chapter, he talks about how much fulfillment and meaning he gets now from helping people. It's so cool to see his journey. You know, when he was the action star, it was all about him. When he, you know, was the movie star, again, it was all about him. But now, in the later stages of his life, he is now fully focused on giving to others. And I love this quote that he says too. He says, everyone wins when you help others, including you. Because when you help other people, it makes you feel good. And we know there's so many studies that prove this already. And I think one of the quickest ways to shift gears as well, to relate it back to a previous chapter, if you're feeling really crappy, one of the quickest ways to feel better is think about some of the people in your circle that you love. Think about someone in your community. Go help them. Get out of your own head. Break that mirror for a moment. And instead of looking at your own life going, everything sucks in my life, just go do something for somebody else. That's one of also, I think, the most pragmatic ways and quickest ways to shift gears. Because when you help other people, everyone wins, including you. I love that.
Yeah, my note on this was probably pretty similar. I just had the word sort of gratitude and appreciation listed there. And it's interesting just watching you, hearing you speak about that. And as your sort of following has grown, you've gotten bigger, right? Being your bro, I get asked the questions like, well, what's he really like?
Should ask Craig that question.
Yeah, should ask Craig.
If anyone asked Craig that question,
they'd
get the real answer.
To me than you are to Craig. So go to there. But yeah, I think it's been really interesting watching you navigate that journey. And sometimes it can be, people might read these chapters with Arnold, or when you're saying that, and they'll be like, oh, well, these are just throwaway lines. It sounds good. It's good for the podcast and the camera, but it's been interesting just watching over a 10-year journey. And I'll say this genuinely, I've never seen anyone act generosity and abundance like how you do. Right? Like, you're the only person that I've seen do it, but do it in a way where you don't do it from a place of like martyrdom, or you don't do it from a place of, I'm doing this so I get something back, or I'm doing this just to get good karma, or whatever it is. You might be, but you just do it because you generally, I think, want the best for those that are around you. But I've only seen you win from it as well. It's one of those things. It's not like, I always used to think that to be generous or abundant, it would mean that you have to sacrifice and then not do that. But you're the first person that I've seen do it on both sides, where like over the years, I've just become a believer that it's just a practical way to play the game of life now. And if you actually do commit to it, it does have a positive, flywheel or engine there. And yeah, just to see somebody do that over a period of time, like, because that's what people are. They're like, it says some really great things online and on social media and stuff. Like, but does he actually do that stuff, or is he different in private? And I'm like, no, he's an absolute piece of shit. Off the camera. No, but it's actually, I'm like, my answer is usually the opposite. I'm like, what you actually see on camera is actually better in real life, which is probably rare with a lot of other people. Usually that version of themselves is the biggest version that they share publicly. But in your case, you're actually a little bit more impressive even behind the scenes. So, and what you've done even over the last year and stuff for everyone in your family and all the things that you've sort of navigated, it's just really incredible to watch. So that's my sort of nearly wrap up of 2023 and as we head into 2024. But it just goes back to that. It was just an overwhelming feeling, I think, even just heading into this podcast, of just gratitude that this is the life and game that we get to play. And, it feels so pure and so energizing. We've got so many amazing people in our lives that, do so many incredible things for us. And it's just a really cool time of the year to reflect on that.
I feel like we're in a point of our lives where we're able to harvest a lot of the fruit that we've been planting for years now. We've been planting a lot of fruits for a long time. We've been watering them, pruning them, taking care of them, giving them shade from sunlight and protecting them. And we've done a lot of that. And I think these couple of years recently, I feel like, wow, it's kind of cool seeing so much of it come together. Even this podcast that we're doing, it's so cool that, we did you sent me the wrap up for Spotify and Buzzsprout and stuff like that. And it's so cool to go, wow, dude, this podcast is in the top 2% of podcasts all around the world. Isn't that crazy? Something that was just born out of love for growth and learning now has become something far beyond what we ever believed it would have ever become.
Insane.
It's so crazy. And I think to turn it back for our listeners as well is that as you move forward, I think it always looks impossible from far away. When you want to do something that you determine is great, it always seems impossible. It always does, because you try to achieve it in one step. But I think if there's anything that I could share, and, standing on the shoulders of giants like Arnold and all the books that we reviewed over the years, it just comes back down to dollar cost averaging your actions. I think that is the ultimate strategy in the financial realm, not financial advisors. That is the ultimate strategy in the financial arena to build wealth, is to constantly and consistently invest. And I think if you just constantly and consistently invested actions on a weekly, on a daily basis towards a vision that you've created that makes you feel a little bit scared, but if you dollar cost average that daily, we are going to see you at the top.
Yep.
We're going to see you there.
And I love that. That's beautiful. And even that sort of note written there as a practical thing as you head into the next year. Do these 3 things. Plan, take action, and review. Right? And I think that's the reps. Once you get them over a period of time, they just build up. Like, you know me, I'm a bit crazy with how I track stuff and all that.
Yeah.
So I've got like systems and stuff set up. Like I had a look in alignment with my vision and the strategies and stuff. I mapped that out at the start of the year.
Yeah.
I use a program called Asana where it all lives inside there. I had a look like it was 1,700 actions taken this year.
You told me this morning.
Right.
Unreal.
That's only an average of 5 a day.
Yeah.
5 a day, but tracked. But now I can look back on that over a 12-month period and literally be like, well, these are the things I plan to do. These are the things that were linked to my vision. These are the things that I achieved and got the outcomes on. These are the things where the journey was really nourishing and nice. These were the things where I failed a little bit and I had to learn and readapt. But that whole story is painted out over a 12-month period. And then you could see it. But at the end of the day, when you really break it down in its simplest form, it was 3 to 5 things every single day. That's it.
Wow.
Right. And then you get this body of work. When you look at it, 1,700 actions, you can't even review it properly. Like realistically, it's too many things. But it's like just those little, it's just jabbing little punches all the time. And it didn't feel that arduous. But if you looked at it, if I'm like, hey, I'm just going to map out 1,700 things that I'm going to do right now, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. So,
well, look, as we round this out, Happy New Year. We are really excited to do 2024 with you. We're really excited to continue to learn, to grow, to expand our minds, and to continually learn how to get better at this game called life. And we just really appreciate you all joining with us on this journey, you know, as 2 of the most uneducated people in our networks come together to try to be educated, to try to continue that learning process.
We read to learn.
Well, we truly do. And I think what's cool is we've remained students and we've held each other accountable to remain students, where I think it's so easy to fall off the bandwagon, no longer learn, no longer read. And I think one of the greatest things you've done for me, and I think hopefully we've been able to do for our listeners as well, is to continually inspire them to learn, because it's never that you're not capable. It's just that you don't know how. So if you don't know how, just find out how. And then just do what Ali said. Just take a few actions a day. That's all it takes. And gradually you'll get to the top. All right. Happy New Year, everyone. Have a wonderful festive season. Eat lots. Take naps. Don't worry about what Arnold says. Take naps and rest and sleep right after you eat. It's all good. You got any final words?
That's it. We're done.
All right. Take care, everyone. We'll see you on the other side of 2024.